The power of vulnerability. Building stronger relationships and achieving success. Chapter 1. Understanding vulnerability. Redefining strength. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as a weakness, a flaw that exposes us to hurt and disappointment. We live in a society that celebrates strength, independence, and self-sufficiency, leading many to believe that vulnerability is something to be avoided at all costs. However, the truth is that vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a profound strength that allows us to connect with others, grow as individuals, and achieve our goals. When we think of vulnerability, we often picture ourselves opening up to others, sharing our deepest fears, insecurities, and dreams. While this is certainly an aspect of vulnerability, it is not the whole picture. Vulnerability is about more than just emotional exposure. It is about having the courage to be authentic, to take risks, and to embrace uncertainty. At its core, vulnerability is about honesty. It is about being true to ourselves and others, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. When we are vulnerable, we strip away the masks we wear to protect ourselves and reveal our true selves to the world. This can be a daunting prospect, as we fear judgment, rejection, or ridicule. However, when we have the courage to be authentic, we open ourselves up to genuine connection and understanding. Vulnerability is also about taking risks. Whether it is applying for a new job, starting a business, or pursuing a creative passion, vulnerability requires us to step outside our comfort zone and face the possibility of failure. This can be frightening, as we often equate failure with personal inadequacy. However, failure is a natural part of growth and learning. When we embrace vulnerability and take risks, we give ourselves the opportunity to learn, adapt, and ultimately succeed. Perhaps most importantly, vulnerability is about embracing uncertainty. Life is full of unknowns, and no matter how much we plan or prepare, we can never fully control the outcome. When we try to avoid vulnerability by clinging to certainty, we limit our potential for growth and happiness. By embracing vulnerability and accepting that we cannot control everything, we free ourselves to live more fully in the present moment. So how can we cultivate vulnerability in our lives? The first step is to recognize and challenge the beliefs that hold us back. Many of us have internalized messages that vulnerability is weak, that we should always have it together, and that we should never show our flaws. These beliefs are not only untrue, but they also prevent us from living authentically and connecting with others. The next step is to practice self-compassion. When we are vulnerable, we expose ourselves to the possibility of hurt and disappointment. It is important to remember that these experiences are a natural part of life, and that they do not define us as people. By treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, we can build the resilience needed to face vulnerability with courage. Another key aspect of cultivating vulnerability is setting healthy boundaries. Vulnerability does not mean oversharing or letting others take advantage of us. It is important to know our limits and communicate them clearly to others. By setting boundaries, we create a safe space for vulnerability to flourish. Practicing vulnerability requires a willingness to take action. It is not enough to simply acknowledge our fears and insecurities. We must also have the courage to face them head-on. This might mean having a difficult conversation with a loved one, pursuing a dream despite the risk of failure, or simply being honest about our feelings. Vulnerability is a powerful tool for building stronger relationships and achieving success. By redefining strength as the courage to be authentic, take risks, and embrace uncertainty, we open ourselves up to a world of possibility. Through self-compassion, healthy boundaries, and a willingness to take action, we can cultivate vulnerability in our lives and reap its many rewards. So let us boldly step into the discomfort of vulnerability, knowing that it is through this discomfort that we will find our greatest strength. Chapter 2. The masks we wear, recognizing and removing barriers. From a young age, society conditions us to present a polished, perfect version of ourselves to the world. We learn to hide our flaws, fears, and insecurities behind carefully crafted masks, believing that this is the key to acceptance and success. However, these masks often become barriers that prevent us from forming genuine connections and living authentically. The masks we wear take many forms. Some of us put on a mask of confidence, projecting an image of self-assurance, even when we feel uncertain or afraid. Others wear a mask of invincibility, pretending that nothing can hurt or affect them. Some masks are more subtle, like the mask of perfection that drives us to present a flawless facade to the world. While these masks may provide a sense of protection in the short term, they ultimately hinder our ability to be vulnerable and form deep, meaningful relationships. When we hide behind a mask, we send a message that we are not willing to be seen for who we truly are. This can create a sense of distrust and disconnection in our relationships, as others may feel that they never really know the real us. Moreover, the energy required to maintain these masks can be exhausting. Constantly monitoring our words, actions, and emotions to ensure that we are presenting the right image takes a toll on our mental and emotional well-being. It can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and burnout, as we struggle to keep up with the demands of our own self-imposed expectations. So how can we begin to recognize and remove the masks we wear? The first step is to develop self-awareness. Take time to reflect on the ways in which you present yourself to the world. Notice when you feel the need to hide or disguise parts of yourself. Ask yourself what fears or beliefs are driving this behavior. Once you have identified the masks you wear, start to challenge the assumptions that underlie them. Question whether your fears of rejection or failure are truly warranted. Consider the costs of hiding your authentic self from the world. Gradually experiment with letting your guard down in safe, supportive environments. It can be helpful to seek out relationships and communities that value authenticity and vulnerability. Surround yourself with people who encourage you to be your true self, and who model this behavior in their own lives. Practice opening up to others, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Remember that vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness. As you work to remove your masks, be patient and compassionate with yourself. Unlearning a lifetime of conditioning takes time and practice. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and forgive yourself when you slip back into old patterns. Removing the masks we wear is a crucial step in building stronger, more authentic relationships and achieving true success. By recognizing the barriers that prevent us from being vulnerable and taking steps to dismantle them, we open ourselves up to a world of possibility. We create space for genuine connection, growth, and fulfillment. Of course, removing our masks does not mean that we must bear all to everyone we meet. It is important to be discerning about whom we choose to be vulnerable with, and to set healthy boundaries around what we share. The goal is not to overshare or to make ourselves unnecessarily vulnerable, but rather to cultivate a sense of authenticity and openness in our relationships. Ultimately, the power of vulnerability lies in its ability to transform our relationships and our lives. When we have the courage to show up as our true selves, flaws and all, we invite others to do the same. We create a space for honesty, empathy, and understanding. We build the kind of deep, meaningful connections that sustain us through life's ups and downs. Be brave enough to take off our masks, one by one. Let us trust that our authentic selves are enough, and that the people who truly matter will love and accept us for who we are. Let us step into the light of vulnerability and discover the strength and beauty that lies within. Chapter 3. Embracing Authenticity. The courage to be yourself. In a society that often values conformity over individuality, embracing authenticity can be a daunting task. We fear judgment, rejection, and the discomfort that comes with standing out from the crowd. However, the truth is that authenticity is the foundation of true happiness, fulfillment, and success. Authenticity means being true to yourself, your values, and your desires. It means having the courage to show up as your genuine self, even when it feels scary or uncomfortable. When you live authentically, you align your actions with your beliefs and create a sense of inner peace and contentment. One of the biggest obstacles to authenticity is the fear of what others will think. We worry that if we reveal our true selves, we will be ridiculed, ostracized, or rejected. This fear can be especially acute in situations where we feel pressure to conform, such as in the workplace or in social settings. However, the reality is that most people are drawn to authenticity. When you have the courage to be yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You create a sense of trust and connection that is essential for building strong, meaningful relationships. Moreover, living authentically allows you to tap into your unique strengths and talents. When you are true to yourself, you naturally gravitate towards activities and pursuits that align with your values and passions. This can lead to greater success and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So how can you begin to embrace authenticity in your own life? The first step is to get clear on your values and priorities. Take time to reflect on what truly matters to you and what kind of person you want to be. Write down your thoughts and refer to them often as a reminder of your authentic self. Next, practice self-awareness and self-acceptance. Notice when you are feeling inauthentic or out of alignment with your values. Instead of judging or criticizing yourself, approach these moments with curiosity and compassion. Ask yourself what you need in order to feel more authentic and true to yourself. It can also be helpful to surround yourself with people who support and encourage your authenticity. Seek out relationships and communities where you feel safe to be yourself and where you are valued for your unique perspectives and contributions. As you begin to embrace authenticity, you may experience discomfort or resistance. This is normal and to be expected. Remember that authenticity is a practice, not a destination. It requires ongoing commitment and courage, especially in the face of challenges or setbacks. One practical way to cultivate authenticity is to start small. Identify one area of your life where you feel out of alignment, and take a small step towards greater authenticity. This might mean speaking up in a meeting, setting a boundary in a relationship, or pursuing a hobby or interest that you have been putting off. As you take these small steps, notice how it feels to be more authentic. Pay attention to the positive outcomes that arise, such as increased confidence, stronger relationships, and a greater sense of purpose and meaning. Over time, as you continue to practice authenticity, you will develop a deeper sense of self-trust and self-acceptance. You will become more comfortable with vulnerability and more resilient in the face of challenges. You will attract people and opportunities that align with your true self and create a life that feels deeply fulfilling and meaningful. Embracing authenticity takes courage, but the rewards are immeasurable. When you have the courage to be yourself, you open yourself up to a world of possibility and potential. You create space for genuine connection, growth, and happiness. You become a beacon of light for others who are also seeking to live authentically. The path to authenticity is not always easy, but it is always worth it. So let us commit to being true to ourselves, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. Have the courage to show up as our genuine selves, and trust that the world needs our unique gifts and perspectives. Let us embrace authenticity as the key to unlocking our full potential and creating a life of purpose and meaning. Chapter 4. The Vulnerability Paradox. How opening up leads to resilience. Vulnerability and resilience may seem like opposing concepts, but they are actually deeply intertwined. When we think of resilience, we often picture a tough, unyielding exterior that can withstand any challenge or setback. However, true resilience comes from a place of vulnerability, from the willingness to open ourselves up to the full range of human experiences and emotions. The vulnerability paradox suggests that by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we actually become stronger and more resilient in the face of adversity. This is because vulnerability requires a deep level of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-compassion. When we are willing to acknowledge and express our fears, doubts, and insecurities, we create space for growth and healing. One of the key ways that vulnerability leads to resilience is through the development of strong, supportive relationships. When we open up to others about our struggles and challenges, we create opportunities for connection and empathy. We allow others to see us as whole, complex human beings, rather than just a facade of perfection and strength. These connections can be a powerful source of support and encouragement during difficult times. When we feel seen, heard, and understood by others, we are more likely to feel a sense of belonging and purpose. We are more likely to reach out for help when we need it, rather than trying to shoulder our burdens alone. Moreover, vulnerability allows us to develop a more accurate and compassionate understanding of ourselves. When we are willing to confront our own limitations and imperfections, we can develop a greater sense of self-acceptance and self-love. We can learn to extend the same kindness and understanding to ourselves that we would offer to a close friend or loved one. This self-compassion is essential for resilience, as it allows us to bounce back from setbacks and failures with greater ease. Instead of getting caught in a cycle of self-blame and self-criticism, we can approach challenges with a growth mindset, seeing them as opportunities for learning and development. Of course, vulnerability is not always easy or comfortable. It requires a willingness to step outside of our comfort zone and risk rejection or judgment from others. It can be especially challenging in a culture that values strength, independence, and self-sufficiency above all else. However, the benefits of vulnerability far outweigh the risks. When we have the courage to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to a deeper, more authentic way of living. We create space for joy, connection, and growth, even in the face of adversity. So how can we begin to cultivate vulnerability in our own lives? One practical step is to start small, by opening up to a trusted friend or family member about something that feels challenging or uncomfortable. This might be a struggle at work, a relationship issue, or a personal insecurity. As we practice vulnerability in these small ways, we can gradually build up our capacity for openness and authenticity. We can seek out supportive communities and relationships that value vulnerability and encourage us to show up as our true selves. It can also be helpful to reframe our understanding of vulnerability as a strength, rather than a weakness. When we see vulnerability as a courageous act of self-expression and self-acceptance, we are more likely to embrace it as a valuable tool for growth and resilience. Ultimately, the vulnerability paradox invites us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to be strong and resilient. It challenges us to let go of the masks and barriers that keep us disconnected from ourselves and others, and to embrace the full range of our human experience. By opening ourselves up to vulnerability, we create space for true resilience to emerge. We develop the inner strength and resources needed to weather life's challenges with grace, compassion, and wisdom. We become more fully ourselves, more deeply connected to others, and more capable of creating a life of meaning and purpose. The path of vulnerability is not always easy, but it is always worth it. So let us have the courage to open ourselves up, to risk discomfort and uncertainty in the service of growth and connection. Trust in the paradoxical power of vulnerability to lead us towards greater resilience, happiness, and fulfillment. Chapter 5. The Art of Active Listening. Fostering Deeper Connections. Active listening forms the bedrock of strong, healthy relationships. It goes beyond simply hearing the words someone speaks. It involves fully concentrating on what is being said, understanding the message, and responding thoughtfully. When we listen actively, we create a safe space for vulnerability, allowing others to share their thoughts, feelings, and experiences without fear of judgment or rejection. One of the key components of active listening is presence. This means giving the speaker your full attention, setting aside distractions such as phones or wandering thoughts. By being fully present, you send a powerful message that you value the person and what they have to say. This presence fosters a sense of trust and respect, essential ingredients for any meaningful connection. Eye contact also plays a crucial role in active listening. Looking directly at the speaker demonstrates your engagement and encourages them to continue sharing. However, it's important to note that eye contact norms can vary across cultures, so it's essential to be attuned to the individual's comfort level and adjust accordingly. Another vital aspect of active listening is nonverbal communication. Our body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice can convey just as much as our words. By maintaining an open posture, nodding occasionally, and using appropriate facial expressions, we signal our interest and understanding. These nonverbal cues create a sense of empathy and validation, helping the speaker feel heard and supported. Reflective listening is another powerful tool in the active listener's arsenal. This involves paraphrasing or summarizing what the speaker has said, using phrases like, "What I'm hearing is," or "It sounds like you're feeling." This technique demonstrates that you are not only hearing the words, but also seeking to understand the underlying meaning and emotions. Reflective listening can help clarify misunderstandings, deepen insights, and show the speaker that their message has been received. Active listening also requires the suspension of judgment. When we listen to understand rather than to formulate a response or critique, we create a space for genuine sharing and connection. This means resisting the urge to interrupt, offer unsolicited advice, or share your own experiences prematurely. By allowing the speaker to fully express themselves without fear of judgment, we foster a sense of safety and acceptance that encourages further vulnerability. Asking open-ended questions is another key strategy for active listening. These questions, which typically begin with what, how, or why, invite the speaker to elaborate on their thoughts and feelings. They demonstrate genuine curiosity and interest, encouraging deeper exploration and self-reflection. By asking clarifying questions, we can better understand the speaker's perspective and avoid making assumptions or jumping to conclusions. It's important to recognize that active listening is a skill that requires practice and patience. In our fast-paced digital world, it's easy to become distracted or rush to fill silences with our own thoughts and opinions. However, by committing to the practice of active listening, we can develop greater empathy, understanding, and connection with others. One practical way to cultivate active listening is to set aside dedicated time for uninterrupted conversation. This might involve scheduling regular check-ins with a partner, friend, or family member, or simply making a conscious effort to put away devices and distractions during conversations. By creating a sacred space for listening, we signal our commitment to the relationship and our willingness to be fully present. Another helpful strategy is to practice mindfulness and self-awareness during conversations. By tuning into our own thoughts, feelings, and reactions, we can better manage our responses and maintain a non-judgmental, open-minded stance. This might involve taking a few deep breaths before responding, or silently acknowledging our own biases or assumptions before refocusing on the speaker. Developing active listening skills can have a profound impact on our relationships and overall well-being. By fostering deeper connections, we create a sense of belonging and support that can buffer against stress, anxiety, and depression. We also become better equipped to navigate conflicts, misunderstandings, and challenges in our personal and professional lives. The art of active listening is a powerful tool for fostering vulnerability, building trust, and strengthening relationships. By giving others our full presence, suspending judgment, and seeking to understand, we create a safe space for authentic sharing and connection. Through the practice of active listening, we not only deepen our relationships with others, but also cultivate greater self-awareness, empathy, and resilience in ourselves. Chapter 6. Empathy in Action. Cultivating compassion and understanding. Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, is a critical component of building strong, healthy relationships. When we approach others with empathy, we create a bridge of understanding that allows for deeper connection, trust, and vulnerability. Empathy enables us to see beyond our own perspectives and experiences, fostering a sense of compassion and unity. One of the foundational elements of empathy is perspective taking. This involves actively seeking to understand another person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences from their unique vantage point. By putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, we can better comprehend their motivations, challenges, and needs. Perspective taking requires setting aside our own judgments and biases and approaching the other person with an open, curious mindset. To cultivate perspective taking, start by asking genuine questions and listening attentively to the answers. Seek to understand the person's background, values, and beliefs, and how these factors shape their worldview. Pay attention to nonverbal cues, such as facial expressions and body language, which can provide valuable insights into their emotional state. By gathering this information, we can develop a more comprehensive understanding of the person's experience. Another key aspect of empathy is emotional attunement. This involves not only recognizing and understanding another person's emotions, but also responding in a way that demonstrates care and concern. When we are emotionally attuned, we can pick up on subtle shifts in mood or energy and adjust our own behavior accordingly. This might involve offering a listening ear, providing comfort or reassurance, or simply sitting with someone in their pain. To develop emotional attunement, practice mindfulness and self-awareness. Pay attention to your own emotions and bodily sensations, as these can provide valuable information about the emotional landscape of a conversation. Use reflective listening skills, such as paraphrasing and summarizing, to show that you are hearing and understanding the other person's feelings. Validate their emotions, even if you don't necessarily agree with their perspective, by acknowledging the realness and validity of their experience. Empathy also involves compassionate action. This means not only understanding and feeling with another person, but also taking steps to support and assist them in meaningful ways. Compassionate action can take many forms, from offering practical help with a task to advocating for someone's needs or rights. The key is to respond in a way that is sensitive, respectful, and empowering, rather than imposing our own agenda or solutions. To practice compassionate action, start by asking the person what they need or how you can support them. Be willing to step outside your comfort zone and take risks on behalf of others, even when it's difficult or inconvenient. Look for opportunities to use your resources, skills, or influence to make a positive difference in someone's life. At the same time, be mindful of your own boundaries and limitations, and communicate these clearly and kindly. Cultivating empathy is an ongoing process that requires intentional effort and practice. One helpful strategy is to seek out diverse perspectives and experiences through reading, travel, or engaging with people from different backgrounds. By exposing ourselves to a wide range of stories and viewpoints, we can expand our capacity for understanding and compassion. Another valuable practice is self-reflection and self-compassion. When we can approach our own thoughts, feelings, and experiences with kindness and understanding, we are better equipped to extend that same empathy to others. Take time to process your own emotions and practice self-care and self-forgiveness when needed. It's also important to recognize that empathy has its limits and challenges. We cannot always fully understand or relate to another person's experience, especially when it is vastly different from our own. Empathy can also be emotionally taxing, particularly when we are exposed to intense suffering or trauma. It's essential to maintain healthy boundaries and practice self-care to avoid burnout or compassion fatigue. Ultimately, empathy is a powerful tool for building bridges of understanding, fostering compassion, and promoting social justice. By cultivating empathy in our personal and professional lives, we can create a more inclusive, connected, and compassionate world. Through perspective taking, emotional attunement, and compassionate action, we can deepen our relationships, resolve conflicts, and work towards the common good. Empathy is not always easy, but it is always worth it. By choosing to see and feel with others, we expand our own horizons, challenge our assumptions, and tap into our shared humanity. Empathy is the foundation of a more just, compassionate, and connected world one conversation, one interaction at a time. Chapter 7. Vulnerability and Leadership. Inspiring Trust and Loyalty. Vulnerability often gets a bad rap. Many people associate vulnerability with weakness, believing that leaders must project an image of unwavering strength and infallibility to gain respect and maintain control. However, the truth is that vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools a leader can wield. When leaders have the courage to be vulnerable, they inspire trust, build loyalty, and create a culture of openness and authenticity. Vulnerability in leadership means being willing to admit mistakes, share fears and doubts, and ask for help when needed. It involves letting go of the need to have all the answers and control all the outcomes, and instead embracing the uncertainty and complexity of the leadership role. When leaders model vulnerability, they send a powerful message that it's okay to be human, to struggle, and to learn from failure. One of the key benefits of vulnerable leadership is that it fosters trust. When leaders are willing to be open and honest about their own challenges and limitations, they create a safe space for others to do the same. This transparency builds a foundation of trust and respect, as team members feel seen, heard, and valued for their whole selves, not just their professional personas. Moreover, vulnerable leaders are more likely to build strong, loyal teams. When leaders admit their own mistakes and take responsibility for their actions, they demonstrate accountability and integrity. They show that they are not above the rules or immune to the consequences of their choices. This authenticity earns the respect and admiration of team members, who are more likely to go above and beyond for a leader they trust and believe in. Vulnerability in leadership also promotes a culture of learning and growth. When leaders are open about their own development areas and actively seek feedback and guidance, they model a growth mindset for their team. They create an environment where it's safe to take risks, make mistakes, and learn from failure. This culture of continuous improvement can lead to increased innovation, creativity, and adaptability, as team members feel empowered to experiment and take ownership of their own development. So how can leaders cultivate vulnerability in their own leadership style? One key strategy is to practice self-awareness and self-reflection. Take time to examine your own strengths, weaknesses, values, and biases, and be willing to share these insights with your team. Seek out feedback from trusted colleagues, mentors, or coaches, and be open to hearing both positive and constructive input. Another important aspect of vulnerable leadership is active listening. When team members come to you with concerns, ideas, or feedback, give them your full attention and presence. Resist the urge to jump in with solutions or advice, and instead ask open-ended questions to deepen your understanding of their perspective. Show empathy and validation for their experiences, even if you don't necessarily agree with their viewpoint. Vulnerable leaders also prioritize transparency and communication. They keep their team informed about important decisions, challenges, and changes, even when the news is difficult or uncomfortable. They are willing to have tough conversations and address conflicts head-on, rather than avoiding or sugarcoating the issues. This transparency builds trust and alignment, as team members feel included and invested in the larger purpose and vision of the organization. It's important to note that vulnerability in leadership does not mean oversharing or burdening your team with personal issues or emotions. There is a balance to strike between authenticity and professionalism, and it's essential to maintain appropriate boundaries and confidentiality. Vulnerable leaders are discerning about what and how much to share, and they always keep the needs and well-being of their team at the forefront. Cultivating vulnerability in leadership is an ongoing practice that requires courage, humility, and resilience. It means being willing to step outside your comfort zone, take risks, and embrace the discomfort of growth and change. It also means surrounding yourself with trusted advisors, mentors, and support systems who can offer guidance, feedback, and encouragement along the way. The rewards of vulnerable leadership are immeasurable. When leaders have the courage to be vulnerable, they create a ripple effect of trust, loyalty, and engagement that can transform entire organizations. They inspire their teams to bring their whole selves to work, to take risks and learn from failure, and to work together towards a shared purpose and vision. Vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. It is the foundation of authentic, impactful leadership that can weather any storm and achieve any goal. By embracing vulnerability in your own leadership journey, you open yourself up to a world of growth, connection, and possibility. You become the kind of leader that people want to follow, not out of fear or obligation, but out of trust, respect, and inspiration. Chapter 8. The Power of Storytelling. Sharing your truth to connect. Storytelling holds immense power in fostering vulnerability and building connections with others. When we share our personal stories, we invite others into our world, revealing our unique experiences, challenges, and triumphs. Through storytelling, we create a bridge of understanding and empathy, allowing others to see us as whole, complex human beings, rather than just surface-level acquaintances. The act of sharing our stories requires courage and vulnerability. It means being willing to open up about our fears, doubts, and struggles, as well as our hopes, dreams, and successes. When we have the courage to share our truth, we create a space for others to do the same. We send a powerful message that it's okay to be imperfect, to have faced adversity, and to have grown from our experiences. One of the key benefits of storytelling is that it humanizes us in the eyes of others. When we share our stories, we reveal our common humanity, highlighting the universal experiences and emotions that connect us all. We show that we are not alone in our struggles, and that even the most successful and confident individuals have faced challenges and setbacks along the way. Moreover, storytelling has the power to inspire and motivate others. When we share stories of overcoming obstacles, persevering through difficult times, or achieving our goals, we provide hope and encouragement to those who may be facing similar challenges. We show that change is possible, that resilience can be cultivated, and that even the darkest moments can lead to growth and transformation. To harness the power of storytelling in your own life, start by reflecting on the experiences and moments that have shaped you. What are the defining events, relationships, or challenges that have made you who you are today? What lessons have you learned? And how have you grown from these experiences? Once you have identified your key stories, consider the audience and purpose for sharing them. Are you looking to build deeper connections with friends and family, to inspire and motivate others, or to process and make sense of your own experiences? Tailor your storytelling approach to your specific goals and the needs of your audience. When sharing your stories, be honest and authentic. Don't try to sugarcoat or gloss over the difficult parts, as this can diminish the impact and relatability of your message. At the same time, be mindful of your own boundaries and comfort level. You don't have to share every detail of your life story, and it's okay to keep some things private or reserved for trusted confidants. It's also important to practice active listening when others share their stories with you. Give them your full attention and presence, and resist the urge to interrupt, judge, or offer unsolicited advice. Show empathy and validation for their experiences, even if you can't fully relate to them. By creating a safe and supportive space for others to share their stories, you foster a culture of openness, trust, and connection. Storytelling can take many forms, from casual conversations with friends and family to more formal settings, such as workshops, speeches, or written narratives. Experiment with different formats and find the ones that feel most natural and authentic to you. You might share your stories through art, music, or photography, or incorporate them into your professional branding and messaging. As you practice sharing your stories, pay attention to the impact they have on others. Notice how people respond to your vulnerability and authenticity, and how it shifts the dynamics of your relationships. You may be surprised at the depth of connection and understanding that can emerge from a single, heartfelt story. It's important to approach storytelling with intention and care. Be mindful of the stories you tell yourself, as well as the ones you share with others. Choose stories that uplift empower, and inspire, rather than ones that perpetuate negativity or victimhood. Use your stories as a tool for growth, healing, and connection, rather than a means of self-promotion or manipulation. Ultimately, the power of storytelling lies in its ability to unite us in our shared humanity. By sharing our truth and listening to the truths of others, we dissolve the barriers that divide us and create a sense of belonging and community. We recognize that we are all works in progress, learning and growing from the stories of our lives. Don't be afraid to have the courage to share our stories, in all their imperfect beauty. Let us listen with open hearts and minds to the stories of others, and hold space for their vulnerability and authenticity. Through the power of storytelling, we can build a world of greater empathy, understanding, and connection, one story at a time. Chapter 9. Navigating difficult conversations. Vulnerability as a bridge. Difficult conversations are an inevitable part of life, both personally and professionally. Whether addressing a conflict with a loved one, providing feedback to a colleague, or discussing a sensitive topic with a friend, these conversations can be challenging, uncomfortable, and emotionally charged. However, when approached with vulnerability and openness, difficult conversations can also be opportunities for growth, understanding, and deeper connection. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in navigating difficult conversations. When we have the courage to be honest about our own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, we create a foundation of trust and authenticity that can disarm defensiveness and invite a more productive dialogue. By modeling vulnerability, we also encourage the other person to lower their guard and engage in a more open and collaborative exchange. One key aspect of approaching difficult conversations with vulnerability is to start from a place of curiosity and empathy. Rather than coming in with assumptions, judgments, or a predetermined agenda, seek to understand the other person's perspective and experiences. Ask open-ended questions and listen actively to their responses, without interrupting or formulating your own rebuttal. By creating a safe space for the other person to share their truth, you demonstrate respect and care for their well-being, even in the midst of a challenging conversation. It's also important to be honest about your own feelings and needs in the conversation. Use I statements to express your own experiences and perspectives, rather than making accusations or generalizations about the other person. For example, instead of saying, "You always shut me out," try saying, "I feel disconnected and unheard when we don't communicate openly." By owning your own feelings and needs, you take responsibility for your own experience and invite the other person to do the same. Another key strategy for navigating difficult conversations with vulnerability is to focus on shared goals and values. Even in the midst of disagreement or conflict, there are often underlying commonalities and aspirations that can serve as a bridge for understanding and collaboration. By highlighting these shared goals and values, you create a sense of partnership and mutual investment in the outcome of the conversation. It's also important to be willing to admit your own mistakes, limitations, and areas for growth in the conversation. When we have the humility to acknowledge our own imperfections and blind spots, we create a more level playing field and invite the other person to do the same. This vulnerability can be disarming and can help to diffuse defensiveness or blame, as both parties recognize their own humanity and fallibility. Of course, navigating difficult conversations with vulnerability is not always easy or comfortable. It requires a willingness to sit with discomfort, to tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty, and to risk being seen in a less than perfect light. It also requires a commitment to self-reflection and self-awareness, as we examine our own biases, assumptions, and triggers that may be shaping our perspective and reactions in the conversation. To cultivate the capacity for vulnerable communication in difficult conversations, it can be helpful to practice self-compassion and self-care. Recognize that these conversations are inherently challenging and that it's okay to feel anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed at times. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding, and make sure to prioritize your own well-being and boundaries in the process. It can also be helpful to seek out support and guidance from trusted mentors, coaches, or therapists who can provide a safe space for processing and skill building around difficult conversations. By investing in your own growth and development, you equip yourself with the tools and resilience needed to navigate even the most challenging dialogues with grace and integrity. Ultimately, the power of vulnerability in difficult conversations lies in its ability to create a shared sense of humanity and connection, even in the midst of difference or disagreement. By having the courage to show up authentically and to invite the other person to do the same, we create the conditions for a more meaningful and productive exchange. We may not always find perfect resolution or agreement, but we can find a greater sense of understanding, empathy, and respect for one another. Navigating difficult conversations with vulnerability is a lifelong practice, one that requires ongoing commitment, courage, and compassion. But by embracing this practice, we open ourselves up to a world of deeper relationships, greater self-awareness, and more effective communication. We become the kind of people who can bridge divides, heal wounds, and create positive change in our lives and in the world around us. Chapter 10: Vulnerability in Romantic Relationships. Cultivating Intimacy and Trust. Vulnerability serves as the bedrock for building intimacy and trust in romantic relationships. When we open ourselves up to our partner, sharing our deepest fears, desires, and aspirations, we create a space for genuine connection and understanding. However, the act of being vulnerable can feel daunting, especially if we've experienced hurt or betrayal in the past. The fear of rejection or judgment can hold us back from fully expressing ourselves and allowing our partner to see us in our entirety. To foster vulnerability in romantic relationships, we must first cultivate self-awareness and self-acceptance. By taking the time to understand our own emotions, needs, and boundaries, we become better equipped to communicate them to our partner. This introspection allows us to approach vulnerability from a place of self-compassion rather than self-criticism. When we accept ourselves, flaws and all, we're more likely to invite our partner to do the same. Establishing a foundation of safety and trust is crucial for vulnerability to thrive. This means creating an environment where both partners feel heard, respected, and validated. It involves actively listening to one another, without judgment or interruption, and responding with empathy and understanding. When we feel secure in our relationship, we're more likely to take emotional risks and share the parts of ourselves that we typically keep hidden. Vulnerability in romantic relationships extends beyond just sharing our thoughts and feelings. It also involves being open to receiving our partner's vulnerability in return. This reciprocity creates a sense of balance and mutuality in the relationship. By holding space for our partner's authentic self-expression, we demonstrate that their vulnerability is welcomed and cherished. We signal that we're committed to supporting them through both the joys and the challenges that life presents. It's important to recognize that vulnerability is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. As our relationship evolves and grows, so too will the depth and breadth of our vulnerability. This requires a willingness to continually show up for ourselves and our partner, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. By making vulnerability a regular part of our relationship, we create a dynamic of openness and authenticity that can weather the storms of life. One practical way to incorporate vulnerability into romantic relationships is through intentional communication. This might involve setting aside dedicated time each week to share openly with one another, without distractions or interruptions. It could also mean practicing I statements when expressing our feelings, rather than casting blame or making accusations. By approaching communication with vulnerability and compassion, we create a safe space for both partners to express themselves freely. Another way to cultivate vulnerability is through shared experiences and adventures. When we step outside of our comfort zones together, whether it's trying a new hobby or traveling to a foreign country, we create opportunities for bonding and growth. These shared experiences can serve as touchpoints for vulnerability as we navigate challenges and triumphs side by side. By facing the unknown together, we deepen our trust and intimacy in the relationship. It's also important to honor each other's boundaries and limitations when it comes to vulnerability. Not everyone feels comfortable sharing at the same pace or depth, and that's okay. By respecting our partner's needs and communicating our own, we create a sense of safety and security in the relationship. We learn to meet each other where we are, rather than pushing for more than either partner is ready to give. Cultivating vulnerability in romantic relationships is not always easy, but it is always worth it. When we have the courage to show up authentically and allow ourselves to be seen, we create a love that is built on a foundation of trust, intimacy, and true partnership. We discover that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength that allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and the person we love. The journey of vulnerability in romantic relationships is a lifelong one, full of twists and turns, ups and downs. But by committing to the practice of openness and authenticity, we give ourselves the greatest gift of all: a love that is unshakable, resilient, and true. A love that can withstand the tests of time and the challenges of life. A love that is built on the bedrock of vulnerability, trust, and intimacy. Approach your romantic relationships with courage and compassion, knowing that vulnerability is the key to unlocking the deepest and most meaningful connections. Let us create a love that is a reflection of our truest selves, a love that is a testament to the power of vulnerability in action. Chapter 11. Vulnerability in Friendships. Building Unbreakable Bonds. Vulnerability plays a vital role in forming and maintaining strong, meaningful friendships. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with our friends, we create a space for authentic connection, trust, and support. By sharing our fears, hopes, and struggles, we invite our friends into our lives in a deeper, more intimate way. This openness fosters a sense of belonging and acceptance that is essential for building unbreakable bonds. To cultivate vulnerability in friendships, we must first be willing to let go of the facade of perfection. Many of us feel pressure to present a polished, put-together version of ourselves to the world, even to our closest friends. We fear that if we reveal our flaws, insecurities, or challenges, we will be judged, rejected, or seen as weak. However, the truth is that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. When we have the courage to be authentic and transparent with our friends, we give them permission to do the same. One practical way to foster vulnerability in friendships is through open and honest communication. This means being willing to share our true thoughts and feelings, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. It also means being a good listener, creating a safe space for our friends to express themselves without fear of judgment or criticism. By approaching conversations with empathy, compassion, and a genuine desire to understand, we build trust and deepen our connections. Another key aspect of vulnerability in friendships is being willing to ask for help and support when we need it. Many of us struggle with the idea of being a burden or appearing needy, so we try to handle everything on our own. However, true friends want to be there for us, both in good times and bad. By reaching out and admitting when we're struggling, we allow our friends to show up for us in meaningful ways. This vulnerability strengthens our bonds and reinforces the idea that we are not alone. It's also important to be vulnerable in the way we show up for our friends. This means being willing to put in the time and effort to nurture our friendships, even when life gets busy or challenging. It means showing up for the big moments, like weddings and graduations, but also for the small, everyday moments that make up the fabric of our lives. By consistently demonstrating our commitment and care, we build a foundation of trust and reliability that can weather any storm. Of course, vulnerability in friendships also requires healthy boundaries and discernment. We don't have to share every detail of our lives with every friend, and it's important to be mindful of our own emotional capacity and needs. It's okay to take space when we need it, to communicate our limits, and to prioritize our own self-care. True friends will respect and honor these boundaries, understanding that vulnerability is a two-way street. Building vulnerability in friendships takes time, effort, and courage. It requires a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones, to risk being seen and known in our entirety. However, the rewards of this vulnerability are immeasurable. When we have friends who truly see and accept us, flaws and all, we feel a sense of belonging and validation that is essential for our well-being. We have a support system that can help us navigate life's challenges and celebrate life's joys. To cultivate vulnerability in your friendships, start small. Share something personal with a trusted friend and see how they respond. Practice active listening and create space for your friends to share their own vulnerabilities. Be consistent in your efforts to show up and be present, both in the big moments and the small. Most importantly, be patient and compassionate with yourself and your friends as you navigate this journey together. Building unbreakable bonds through vulnerability is a lifelong process, but it is one of the most rewarding investments we can make. When we have friends who know us, accept us, and love us unconditionally, we have a source of strength, resilience, and joy that can carry us through any challenge. We have a reminder that we are not alone, that we are worthy of love and belonging, just as we are. So let us approach our friendships with courage and openness, knowing that vulnerability is the key to building connections that last a lifetime. Let us create a world where we can be our true, authentic selves, and where we can find the support and acceptance we need to thrive. Through vulnerability, we have the power to transform our friendships, our lives, and the world around us. Chapter 12. Vulnerability in the workplace. Fostering collaboration and innovation. Vulnerability may not be the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about the workplace, but it plays a crucial role in fostering collaboration, creativity, and innovation. In a professional setting, vulnerability involves being open and honest about our ideas, admitting when we need help, and being receptive to feedback. By creating a culture of vulnerability, organizations can tap into the full potential of their employees and create a more engaged, productive, and innovative workforce. One of the key benefits of vulnerability in the workplace is that it promotes psychological safety. When employees feel safe to express their thoughts and ideas without fear of criticism or retribution, they are more likely to take risks, think outside the box, and come up with creative solutions to problems. This is especially important in today's fast-paced, ever-changing business environment, where innovation is essential for staying competitive. To foster vulnerability in the workplace, leaders must model the behavior themselves. This means being willing to admit when they don't have all the answers, seeking input from their team, and being open to feedback and constructive criticism. When leaders show vulnerability, they create a culture of trust and openness that trickles down to the rest of the organization. Another way to promote vulnerability in the workplace is through empathetic communication. This involves actively listening to others, seeking to understand their perspectives, and responding with compassion and understanding. By creating a culture of empathy, organizations can break down silos, foster collaboration, and create a more inclusive and supportive work environment. One practical way to incorporate vulnerability into the workplace is through regular check-ins and feedback sessions. These can be one-on-one meetings with managers or team-wide discussions, where everyone has an opportunity to share their thoughts and ideas. By creating a safe space for open and honest communication, organizations can identify areas for improvement, celebrate successes, and build stronger relationships among team members. It's also important to recognize and reward vulnerability in the workplace. This can be as simple as acknowledging when someone takes a risk or admits a mistake, or as formal as incorporating vulnerability into performance evaluations and promotion criteria. By celebrating vulnerability, organizations send a clear message that it is valued and encouraged. Of course, vulnerability in the workplace also requires clear boundaries and professional standards. It's important to create a culture where vulnerability is balanced with accountability, respect, and confidentiality. Employees should feel safe to express themselves, but also understand that there are limits to what is appropriate to share in a professional setting. Fostering vulnerability in the workplace is an ongoing process that requires commitment and intentionality from everyone involved. It may feel uncomfortable at first, especially for those who are used to a more traditional, hierarchical work environment. However, the benefits of vulnerability, increased collaboration, innovation, and engagement are well worth the effort. To start building a culture of vulnerability in your workplace, consider the following steps. Step 1. Lead by example. As a leader, be willing to show vulnerability yourself by admitting mistakes, seeking feedback, and being open to new ideas. Step 2. Create safe spaces for open communication. Establish regular check-ins, feedback sessions, and team meetings where everyone has an opportunity to share their thoughts and ideas. Step 3. Encourage empathetic communication. Train employees on active listening, empathy, and compassionate communication skills. Step 4. Celebrate vulnerability. Recognize and reward employees who take risks, admit mistakes, and seek help when needed. Step 5. Set clear boundaries. Establish professional standards and guidelines for appropriate vulnerability in the workplace. By fostering a culture of vulnerability, organizations can unlock the full potential of their employees and create a more collaborative, innovative, and engaged workforce. It may not be easy, but the rewards both for individuals and the organization as a whole are well worth the effort. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. By embracing vulnerability in the workplace, we create a culture of trust, creativity, and innovation that can transform our organizations and our lives. So let us approach our work with courage and openness, knowing that vulnerability is the key to unlocking our full potential and creating a brighter, more collaborative future for us all. Chapter 13. The Vulnerability Hangover. Coping with the aftermath of opening up. Opening up and being vulnerable can be a liberating and transformative experience. But it can also leave us feeling raw, exposed, and emotionally drained. This phenomenon is known as the vulnerability hangover, the emotional aftermath that follows a moment of intense vulnerability. It's a natural response to the risk and uncertainty of sharing our deepest thoughts, feelings, and experiences with others. The vulnerability hangover can manifest in many ways. We might feel anxious, embarrassed, or regretful about what we've shared. We might worry that we've revealed too much, or that others will judge or reject us. We might even feel physically exhausted, as if the emotional effort of being vulnerable has taken a toll on our body. These feelings are a normal part of the vulnerability process. They are a sign that we've stepped outside of our comfort zone and taken a risk in the service of connection and growth. However, that doesn't make them any less uncomfortable or challenging to deal with. One of the key strategies for coping with a vulnerability hangover is self-compassion. This means treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, rather than judgment or criticism. It involves acknowledging that vulnerability is hard, and that it's okay to feel uncomfortable or uncertain in the aftermath. Self-compassion also means taking care of ourselves physically and emotionally. This might involve taking a break from social media or other triggers, engaging in self-care activities like exercise or meditation, or reaching out to trusted friends or family members for support. It's also important to remember that the vulnerability hangover is temporary. The intensity of the emotions will eventually subside, and we will be left with the benefits of having taken a risk and opened up to others. These benefits might include deeper connections, greater self-awareness, or a sense of relief and authenticity. To help manage the vulnerability hangover, it can be helpful to reframe the experience in a positive light. Instead of focusing on the discomfort or uncertainty, we can choose to focus on the courage and strength it took to be vulnerable in the first place. We can remind ourselves that vulnerability is a sign of growth and resilience, not weakness or failure. It can also be helpful to practice self-reflection in the aftermath of a vulnerable moment. This might involve journaling about the experience or talking it through with a trusted friend or therapist. By processing our emotions and thoughts, we can gain insight into what we've learned and how we've grown as a result of being vulnerable. Of course, it's important to remember that vulnerability is not always appropriate or safe in every situation. There may be times when it's necessary to set boundaries or protect ourselves from further emotional exposure. This is especially true if we've experienced trauma or abuse in the past, or if we're in a situation where vulnerability could be used against us. In these cases, it's important to trust our instincts and prioritize our own emotional safety. This might mean seeking professional help or support, or finding alternative ways to connect and express ourselves that feel more comfortable and secure. Ultimately, coping with the vulnerability hangover is a skill that can be developed over time. The more we practice being vulnerable and processing the aftermath, the more resilient and self-aware we become. We learn to trust ourselves and others more deeply, and to find comfort in the discomfort of growth and change. If you're struggling with a vulnerability hangover, remember that you are not alone. Everyone who has ever taken a risk and opened up to others has experienced this feeling at some point. It's a natural part of the human experience, and a sign that you are brave, resilient, and committed to living authentically. So be kind to yourself, take care of your needs, and trust in the power of vulnerability to transform your life and relationships. The discomfort of the vulnerability hangover is a small price to pay for the depth, meaning, and connection that comes from living openly and authentically. With time, practice, and self-compassion, you will learn to navigate the vulnerability hangover with greater ease and resilience. You will become more comfortable with the discomfort of growth, and more confident in your ability to connect and thrive, no matter what challenges come your way. Chapter 14. Vulnerability and Boundaries. Knowing when and how to set limits. Vulnerability is a powerful tool for building connection, trust, and intimacy in our relationships. However, it's important to recognize that vulnerability also requires healthy boundaries. Without clear limits and guidelines, vulnerability can quickly become overwhelming, exhausting, or even harmful. Learning to set and maintain boundaries is an essential skill for anyone seeking to cultivate vulnerability in their lives. Boundaries are the physical, emotional, and mental limits we set to protect ourselves and our well-being. They help us define what is and isn't acceptable in our relationships, and they communicate our needs and expectations to others. When we have clear boundaries, we feel more secure, empowered, and in control of our lives. Setting boundaries around vulnerability can be challenging, especially if we're not used to advocating for our own needs. We may worry that setting limits will damage our relationships or make us appear weak or unlovable. We may feel guilty or selfish for prioritizing our own well-being over the needs of others. However, the truth is that healthy boundaries are essential for sustainable, authentic vulnerability. When we have clear limits and guidelines, we create a safe and supportive environment for emotional risk-taking. We communicate to others that we value ourselves and expect to be treated with respect and care. To set effective boundaries around vulnerability, start by getting clear on your own needs and limits. Take time to reflect on what feels comfortable and safe for you, and what feels overwhelming or triggering. Pay attention to your body's signals, such as feelings of anxiety, tension, or exhaustion, which can be signs that a boundary has been crossed. Once you have a sense of your own boundaries, communicate them clearly and directly to others. Use I statements to express your needs and feelings, rather than blaming or attacking others. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," try saying, "I feel unheard when I share my feelings and don't receive a response." It's also important to be specific and concrete when setting boundaries. Instead of making vague statements like, "I need more space," clarify what that looks like in practice. For example, "I need to take a break from our conversation for 30 minutes to recharge." Of course, setting boundaries is only the first step. We must also be willing to enforce them consistently and compassionately. This means following through on our limits, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. It also means being willing to have difficult conversations and hold others accountable for respecting our boundaries. At the same time, it's important to approach boundary setting with empathy and understanding. We all have different needs and limits, and what feels comfortable for one person may not feel comfortable for another. When someone crosses our boundaries, it's important to approach the situation with curiosity and compassion, rather than judgment or blame. It can be helpful to think of boundaries as a form of self-care and self-love. When we set and maintain healthy limits, we communicate to ourselves and others that we are worthy of respect, care, and consideration. We create a foundation of safety and trust that allows us to be vulnerable in meaningful and authentic ways. Of course, boundary setting is a skill that takes practice and patience to develop. We may make mistakes along the way or encounter resistance from others who are not used to us advocating for our own needs. It's important to be gentle and forgiving with ourselves as we learn and grow. If you're struggling to set boundaries around vulnerability, consider seeking support from a trusted friend, family member, or therapist. Having an outside perspective can be invaluable in identifying patterns and blind spots, and developing strategies for effective communication and limit setting. It's important to recognize that boundaries are not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of self-discovery and self-advocacy. As we grow and change, our needs and limits may shift as well. It's okay to reassess and adjust our boundaries as needed, and to communicate these changes to others in our lives. Vulnerability and boundaries are two sides of the same coin. When we learn to set and maintain healthy limits, we create the conditions for authentic, sustainable vulnerability to thrive. We communicate to ourselves and others that we are worthy of care, respect, and consideration, and we create a foundation of safety and trust that allows us to take emotional risks and connect meaningfully with others. So be patient and compassionate with yourself as you navigate the process of boundary setting. Trust in your own wisdom and intuition, and know that you are worthy of love and respect, just as you are. With practice and perseverance, you will find the balance between vulnerability and boundaries that allows you to thrive in all areas of your life. Chapter 15. Vulnerability and Self-Care. Nurturing your emotional well-being. Vulnerability is a courageous act that requires emotional energy and resilience. When we open ourselves up to others, we expose our innermost thoughts, feelings, and experiences, which can leave us feeling raw and vulnerable. To sustain the practice of vulnerability over time, it's essential to prioritize self-care and nurture our emotional well-being. Self-care is the practice of taking intentional actions to care for our physical, mental, and emotional health. It involves tuning into our own needs and making choices that support our overall well-being. When we engage in regular self-care, we build the resilience and emotional stamina needed to navigate the challenges and rewards of vulnerability. One key aspect of self-care for vulnerability is setting healthy boundaries. As discussed in the previous chapter, boundaries are the limits we set to protect our time, energy, and emotional well-being. By communicating our needs and expectations clearly and compassionately, we create a safe and supportive environment for vulnerability to thrive. Self-care also involves developing a strong support system of trusted friends, family members, or professionals who can offer guidance, encouragement, and validation. Having people in our lives who understand and appreciate the value of vulnerability can be incredibly affirming and empowering. These relationships provide a safe space to process our experiences, celebrate our successes, and receive support during challenging times. Another important aspect of self-care for vulnerability is cultivating self-compassion. Self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, rather than judgment or criticism. When we approach ourselves with compassion, we create a sense of safety and acceptance that allows us to take emotional risks and learn from our experiences. To cultivate self-compassion, start by noticing your inner dialogue and the way you speak to yourself. Are you critical, judgmental, or harsh? Or are you kind, supportive, and understanding? When you notice negative self-talk, try to reframe your thoughts in a more compassionate way. For example, instead of saying, "I'm so stupid for sharing that," try saying, "It took courage to share my feelings, and I'm proud of myself for taking that risk." Self-care for vulnerability also involves taking care of our physical health. When we're tired, hungry, or stressed, it's harder to show up as our best selves and engage in meaningful vulnerability. Prioritizing regular exercise, healthy eating, and sufficient sleep can help us feel more grounded, energized, and emotionally resilient. It's also important to engage in activities that bring us joy, relaxation, and fulfillment. This might include hobbies, creative pursuits, time in nature, or social connection. By filling our cups with positive experiences and emotions, we build the emotional reserves needed to engage in vulnerability with others. Of course, self-care looks different for everyone, and what works for one person may not work for another. It's important to experiment with different strategies and find what feels most nourishing and supportive for you. This might involve trial and error, as well as a willingness to adjust your self-care practices over time as your needs and circumstances change. It's also important to recognize that self-care is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice that requires commitment and consistency. Just as vulnerability is a lifelong journey, so too is the practice of nurturing our emotional well-being. By making self-care a regular part of our lives, we create a foundation of resilience and strength that allows us to show up fully and authentically in our relationships and experiences. Self-care is not selfish or indulgent, but rather an essential part of living a healthy, fulfilling life. When we take care of ourselves, we show up as our best selves in all areas of our lives, including our relationships, work, and personal growth. We communicate to ourselves and others that we are worthy of love, care, and respect, and we model the importance of self-care for those around us. Vulnerability and self-care are interconnected practices that support and enhance each other. When we prioritize our own emotional well-being, we create the conditions for authentic, sustainable vulnerability to thrive. And when we engage in meaningful vulnerability with others, we deepen our self-awareness, compassion, and resilience, which in turn supports our ongoing self-care. Be gentle and compassionate with yourself as you navigate the journey of vulnerability and self-care. Trust in your own wisdom and intuition, and know that you are worthy of love, care, and respect, just as you are. With patience, practice, and a commitment to your own well-being, you will find the balance and resilience needed to live a life of authenticity, connection, and purpose. Chapter 16. The Vulnerability Toolkit. Practical strategies for embracing openness. Embracing vulnerability as a way of life requires more than just a willingness to be open and authentic. It also requires practical tools and strategies to help us navigate the challenges and opportunities that come with this way of being. This chapter offers a toolkit of concrete practices and techniques that can support us in our ongoing journey of vulnerability. One essential tool in the Vulnerability Toolkit is self-awareness. To be vulnerable in a healthy and authentic way, we must first understand our own thoughts, feelings, and needs. This means taking time to reflect on our experiences, tune into our emotions, and identify our values and priorities. Journaling, meditation, and therapy can all be powerful practices for cultivating self-awareness and gaining clarity on what we need to feel safe and supported in our vulnerability. Another key tool is communication. Vulnerability requires us to express ourselves honestly and directly, even when it feels scary or uncomfortable. This means learning to use I statements, asking for what we need, and setting clear boundaries. It also means practicing active listening, staying curious about others' experiences, and being willing to have difficult conversations when necessary. Effective communication skills can help us build trust, deepen intimacy, and navigate conflicts in a way that honors our vulnerability and the vulnerability of others. A third tool in the Vulnerability Toolkit is self-compassion. As we've explored in previous chapters, vulnerability can be a challenging and emotional experience. We may feel exposed, uncertain, or even ashamed at times. Self-compassion allows us to meet these difficult feelings with kindness and understanding, rather than judgment or criticism. By treating ourselves with the same care and concern we would offer a good friend, we can build resilience and maintain a sense of worthiness, even in the face of setbacks or failures. Courage is another essential tool for embracing vulnerability. It takes bravery to show up authentically in a world that often rewards conformity and perfection. Courage allows us to take emotional risks, speak our truth, and stand up for what we believe in, even when it's hard. It also means being willing to fail, to learn from our mistakes, and to try again. By cultivating courage through small, daily acts of bravery, we can build the strength and resilience needed to embrace vulnerability as a way of life. Gratitude is a fifth tool in the vulnerability toolkit. When we approach life with a sense of appreciation and thankfulness, we open ourselves up to the goodness and beauty that surrounds us. Gratitude helps us shift our focus from what's lacking to what's abundant, from fear to love. It also helps us cultivate a sense of connection and interdependence, recognizing that we are part of a larger web of support and care. By practicing gratitude through daily rituals, such as keeping a gratitude journal or sharing appreciations with loved ones, we can infuse our vulnerability with a sense of joy and abundance. Of course, no toolkit is complete without resources and support. Embracing vulnerability is not a solo journey, but one that requires community, guidance, and encouragement. This might mean joining a support group, working with a therapist or coach, or surrounding ourselves with friends and mentors who share our values and cheer us on. It also means seeking out books, podcasts, workshops, and other resources that can deepen our understanding and practice of vulnerability. By building a strong support system, we can feel held and supported as we navigate the ups and downs of this path. Putting these tools into practice requires commitment, courage, and a willingness to experiment. It means being open to trying new things, learning from our experiences, and adjusting our approach as needed. It also means being patient and compassionate with ourselves, recognizing that vulnerability is a lifelong practice, not a destination. One way to begin integrating these tools into our lives is to start small. We might choose one tool to focus on each week or month, setting intentions and taking concrete actions to bring it to life. For example, we might commit to writing in a gratitude journal every morning for a week, or practicing I statements in our communication with a loved one. As we build these small habits and practices, we create a foundation of vulnerability that can support us in all areas of our lives. It's important to approach this toolkit with a sense of curiosity and openness, rather than rigidity or perfectionism. What works for one person may not work for another, and what feels nourishing at one stage of life may shift over time. By staying attuned to our own needs and experiences, we can adapt and customize our vulnerability toolkit to support us in each moment. Embracing vulnerability is a courageous and transformative choice. It requires us to let go of old patterns and defenses, and to step into a new way of being that is authentic, wholehearted, and alive. By equipping ourselves with practical tools and strategies, we can navigate this path with greater ease, resilience, and joy. The vulnerability toolkit is not a magic wand that will eliminate all challenges or discomfort. Vulnerability will always require risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. But by grounding ourselves in self-awareness, communication, self-compassion, courage, gratitude, and support, we can meet these challenges with greater wisdom, strength, and grace. As we continue on this journey of vulnerability, may we hold these tools close to our hearts, using them to guide us towards greater authenticity, connection, and aliveness. May we trust in the power of our own courage and resilience, knowing that we have everything we need to embrace vulnerability as a way of life. And may we find joy and meaning in the process, discovering the gifts that await us on the other side of fear. Chapter 17. Vulnerability and Conflict Resolution. Finding common ground. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in resolving conflicts and finding common ground with others. When we approach disagreements or misunderstandings from a place of openness and authenticity, we create space for genuine dialogue, empathy, and collaboration. Vulnerability allows us to see beyond our own perspectives and to connect with the humanity in others, even when we disagree. One of the key ways that vulnerability supports conflict resolution is by promoting active listening. When we're in a conflict with someone, it's easy to get caught up in our own thoughts, feelings, and opinions. We may be quick to defend ourselves, make assumptions, or dismiss the other person's perspective. Active listening requires us to set aside our own agenda and to focus fully on understanding the other person's experience. This means paying attention not just to their words, but also to their tone, body language, and underlying emotions. To practice active listening in a conflict situation, start by taking a deep breath and centering yourself in the present moment. Let go of any judgments or preconceptions you may have about the other person or the situation. As they speak, focus on their message and try to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Use nonverbal cues like nodding, eye contact, and open body language to show that you're engaged and attentive. When they're finished speaking, reflect back what you've heard to ensure that you've understood them correctly. Another way that vulnerability supports conflict resolution is by promoting honesty and transparency. When we're in a conflict, it can be tempting to hide our true feelings or needs in order to avoid further confrontation or discomfort. However, this approach often leads to resentment, misunderstanding, and escalation of the conflict. Vulnerability requires us to be honest about our own experiences, even when it's difficult or scary. To practice honesty and transparency in a conflict situation, start by taking responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. Use I statements to express your experience, rather than blaming or accusing the other person. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," try saying, "I feel frustrated when I'm not able to finish my thoughts." Be specific and direct in your communication, while also being open to hearing the other person's perspective. Vulnerability also supports conflict resolution by promoting empathy and compassion. When we're in a conflict with someone, it's easy to see them as an adversary or an obstacle to be overcome. However, this mindset often leads to further polarization and disconnection. Vulnerability requires us to see the humanity in the other person and to recognize that they, like us, are complex individuals with their own needs, fears, and experiences. To practice empathy and compassion in a conflict situation, try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Consider what might be driving their behavior or perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Look for common ground or shared values that you can build upon. Express curiosity and interest in understanding their experience more fully. Use phrases like, "Help me understand," or "I can imagine that must be difficult for you," to show that you're open to seeing things from their perspective. Of course, practicing vulnerability in conflict resolution is not always easy or comfortable. It requires us to step outside of our comfort zone and to risk being seen and heard in a new way. It also requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to stay engaged, even when things get difficult or emotional. One practical strategy for building vulnerability in conflict resolution is to focus on the relationship, rather than just the issue at hand. This means prioritizing the long-term health and well-being of the relationship over the short-term need to be right or to win the argument. It also means being willing to apologize, take responsibility, and make amends when necessary, even if we don't feel entirely at fault. Another strategy is to seek out support and guidance from others who can help us navigate difficult conversations and conflicts. This might mean working with a mediator, counselor, or coach who can provide tools and strategies for effective communication and problem solving. It might also mean seeking out the wisdom and experience of trusted friends, family members, or mentors who can offer perspective and encouragement along the way. Conflict is an inevitable part of life. but it doesn't have to be a source of disconnection or suffering. By approaching conflicts with vulnerability, honesty, empathy, and a focus on the relationship, we can transform them into opportunities for growth, understanding, and connection. We can find common ground with others, even in the midst of disagreement, and build stronger, more resilient relationships as a result. The path of vulnerability in conflict resolution is not a straight line, but a winding road with many twists and turns. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to stay present and engaged, even when things get messy or uncomfortable. But by committing to this path, we open ourselves up to a world of greater understanding, collaboration, and peace. May we approach conflicts with curiosity, compassion, and a commitment to finding common ground. May we have the courage to speak our truth, listen deeply to others, and stay connected to our shared humanity. And may we find strength and resilience in the knowledge that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a powerful tool for creating a more just, loving, and connected world. Chapter 18. The ripple effect of vulnerability, inspiring others to open up. Vulnerability has a powerful ripple effect that extends far beyond our individual relationships and experiences. When we have the courage to be open and authentic, we inspire others to do the same. We create a culture of vulnerability that allows for deeper connection, understanding, and growth. This ripple effect has the potential to transform not just our own lives, but also the lives of those around us and the communities we belong to. One of the most powerful ways that vulnerability creates a ripple effect is through modeling. When we show up vulnerably in our relationships and interactions, we demonstrate to others that it's possible to be authentic and open, even in the face of fear or uncertainty. We give them permission to do the same, and we create a sense of safety and trust that allows for deeper sharing and connection. This modeling can take many forms, from sharing our own struggles and challenges with others, to being open about our fears and insecurities, to admitting when we don't have all the answers. It can also involve being willing to apologize when we've made a mistake, or to ask for help when we need it. Each of these actions sends a powerful message to others that vulnerability is not only acceptable, but also valuable and necessary for growth and connection. Of course, modeling vulnerability is not always easy or comfortable. It requires us to step outside of our comfort zone and to risk being seen and judged by others. It also requires us to be discerning about who we choose to be vulnerable with and in what contexts. Not everyone will be ready or willing to receive our vulnerability, and it's important to trust our instincts and set appropriate boundaries to protect ourselves. Another way that vulnerability creates a ripple effect is through the power of story. When we share our own stories of vulnerability and growth, we invite others to connect with us on a deeper level. We create a sense of shared humanity and experience that allows for greater empathy, understanding, and connection. We also give others permission to share their own stories and to find meaning and purpose in their own challenges and struggles. Storytelling can take many forms, from casual conversations with friends and family to more formal settings like workshops, speeches, or memoirs. The key is to be authentic and honest in our sharing, and to focus on the lessons and insights we've gained from our experiences. By sharing our stories, we not only inspire others to be more vulnerable, but we also contribute to a larger narrative of growth, resilience, and connection. Of course, the ripple effect of vulnerability extends beyond just our immediate relationships and interactions. When we create a culture of vulnerability in our families, workplaces, and communities, we set the stage for greater innovation, creativity, and collaboration. We allow for more diverse perspectives and ideas to be heard and valued, and we create a sense of psychological safety that allows for risk-taking and experimentation. This culture of vulnerability can have far-reaching effects on our society as a whole. When we normalize vulnerability and authenticity, we create a more compassionate and inclusive world. We break down barriers of judgment and discrimination, and we allow for greater understanding and connection across differences. We also create a sense of shared responsibility and accountability, recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world. Of course, creating a culture of vulnerability is not always easy or straightforward. It requires ongoing commitment, courage, and a willingness to have difficult conversations and to challenge the status quo. It also requires us to be patient and persistent, recognizing that change happens slowly and incrementally over time. One practical way to contribute to a culture of vulnerability is to seek out opportunities to engage in vulnerable conversations and interactions. This might mean initiating a difficult conversation with a coworker or family member, or being willing to share our own struggles and challenges in a group setting. It might also mean advocating for greater vulnerability and authenticity in our workplaces or communities, or supporting others who are doing this work. It's important to approach this work with humility, compassion, and a willingness to learn and grow. We may make mistakes along the way, or encounter resistance or pushback from others. But by staying committed to the practice of vulnerability, and by focusing on the larger vision of a more connected and compassionate world, we can continue to make progress and to inspire others along the way. The ripple effect of vulnerability is a powerful force for change and transformation, both in our individual lives and in the world around us. By having the courage to be open and authentic, and by inspiring others to do the same, we create a chain reaction of growth, connection, and healing. We build stronger, more resilient relationships and communities, and we contribute to a larger narrative of hope and possibility. May we trust in the power of our stories and the impact of our actions, knowing that we all have a role to play in creating change. And may we find strength and support in the knowledge that we are not alone on this path, but part of a larger community of brave and compassionate souls who are committed to living and leading with vulnerability and heart. Chapter 19. Vulnerability and Resilience. Bouncing back from setbacks. Vulnerability and resilience are closely intertwined. Opening up and exposing our authentic selves takes courage, but it also helps us develop the inner strength to overcome life's inevitable challenges and setbacks. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we build the emotional muscles needed to bounce back from disappointments, failures, and hardships with greater ease and adaptability. Resilience is the capacity to recover from difficult experiences and to face future stressors with confidence and optimism. It's not about avoiding pain or struggle, but rather learning to move through it with grace and grit. Vulnerability plays a key role in fostering resilience by helping us cultivate self-awareness, self-compassion, and strong social connections, all essential building blocks for weathering life's storms. Through vulnerability, we gain a deeper understanding of our own thoughts, feelings, and needs. We learn to tune into our internal experience with curiosity and acceptance, rather than judgment or denial. This self-awareness allows us to recognize when we're feeling overwhelmed or depleted, and to take proactive steps to care for ourselves and seek support. It also helps us identify our strengths, values, and sources of meaning, which can serve as anchors during times of stress and uncertainty. Vulnerability also promotes self-compassion, the practice of treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness. When we open up about our struggles and imperfections, we chip away at the unrealistic expectations and self-criticism that can keep us stuck in shame and self-doubt. We learn to extend the same empathy and care to ourselves that we would offer a good friend, acknowledging that everyone makes mistakes and experiences hardship. This self-compassion builds emotional resilience by allowing us to move through difficult experiences with greater ease and perspective. Perhaps most importantly, vulnerability fosters strong social connections, which are essential for resilience. When we share our authentic thoughts and feelings with others, we create opportunities for empathy, validation, and support. We learn that we are not alone in our struggles, and that there are people who will stand by us through thick and thin. These supportive relationships provide a buffer against stress and adversity, offering practical help, emotional comfort, and a sense of belonging. Of course, Being vulnerable doesn't guarantee a pain-free life or an endless stream of positive outcomes. Setbacks, disappointments, and failures are a natural part of the human experience, and vulnerability can sometimes leave us feeling raw and exposed in the face of them. The key is to view these challenges as opportunities for growth and learning, rather than as evidence of our inadequacy or weakness. One way to cultivate a resilient mindset is to practice reframing setbacks as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. When we encounter a disappointment or failure, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use it to grow and improve? By shifting our focus from the temporary pain of the setback to the long-term gains of the lesson, we build the mental flexibility and optimism needed to keep moving forward. It's also important to surround ourselves with supportive, encouraging people who will cheer us on through life's ups and downs. Building a strong social support network takes time and effort, but it's one of the most powerful ways to boost resilience. We can start by identifying the people in our lives who make us feel seen, heard, and valued, and investing energy into nurturing those relationships. We can also seek out new connections through shared interests, community groups, or volunteer work. Practicing self-care is another key aspect of resilience. When we're dealing with setbacks or challenges, it's easy to neglect our own needs and well-being. But taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, and mentally is essential for maintaining the energy and perspective needed to bounce back. This might mean prioritizing rest and relaxation, engaging in hobbies or activities that bring us joy, or seeking professional support through therapy or coaching. Ultimately, vulnerability and resilience are muscles that we can strengthen over time with practice and patience. The more we open up and allow ourselves to be seen, the more we develop the inner resources to handle life's ups and downs with courage and grace. We learn to trust in our own strength and adaptability, knowing that we have the tools to pick ourselves up and keep moving forward, no matter what comes our way. By embracing vulnerability as a path to resilience, we open ourselves up to a world of growth, connection, and possibility. We build the emotional agility to navigate change and uncertainty, the self-awareness to identify our needs and values, and the social support to weather any storm. Most importantly, we learn to face life's challenges with an open heart and a curious mind, knowing that every setback is an opportunity to learn, grow, and become the most resilient version of ourselves. Chapter 20. Vulnerability and Creativity. Unleashing your inner artist. Vulnerability and creativity are deeply connected. When we open ourselves up to new experiences, ideas, and perspectives, we tap into a wellspring of inspiration and innovation. We allow ourselves to take risks, experiment, and explore uncharted territory, both in our creative pursuits and in our personal lives. By embracing vulnerability as a tool for self-expression and discovery, we unleash our inner artist and unlock our full creative potential. Creativity thrives in an environment of openness, authenticity, and courage. When we're willing to be vulnerable in our creative work, we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to try new things without fear of failure or judgment. We let go of the need to control the outcome and instead focus on the process of exploration and experimentation. This mindset shift can be incredibly liberating, freeing us from the constraints of perfectionism and self-doubt that can stifle our creativity. One way to cultivate vulnerability in our creative practice is to share our work with others, even when it feels scary or exposing. Whether it's a rough draft of a story, a sketch of a painting, or a demo of a song, putting our creations out into the world takes courage and trust. It requires us to be open to feedback, criticism, and even rejection, knowing that these experiences are all part of the creative process. By sharing our work, we also open ourselves up to the possibility of connection, collaboration, and growth, as we learn from and inspire others in our creative community. Vulnerability also allows us to tap into our emotions and experiences as sources of creative inspiration. When we're willing to explore our own inner landscape with honesty and curiosity, we uncover rich veins of material for our art. We learn to channel our fears, hopes, and dreams into our work, infusing it with a sense of authenticity and depth. We also develop greater empathy and understanding for others, as we recognize the universal human experiences that connect us all. This emotional intelligence can be a powerful tool for creating work that resonates with and moves others. Another way to foster vulnerability in our creative practice is to take risks and try new things. This might mean experimenting with a new medium or technique, collaborating with someone from a different discipline, or exploring a subject matter that feels challenging or uncomfortable. By stepping outside of our comfort zone and embracing the unknown, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and discoveries. We learn to trust in our own creative instincts and abilities, even when the path ahead is uncertain or unfamiliar. Of course, being vulnerable in our creative work can also be emotionally challenging at times. We may face self-doubt, criticism, or rejection along the way, which can be painful and discouraging. It's important to develop a strong support system of friends, family, and fellow creatives who can offer encouragement, feedback, and perspective when we need it most. We can also practice self-compassion and self-care, reminding ourselves that our worth as artists and individuals is not defined by external validation or success. One practical way to cultivate vulnerability and creativity in our daily lives is to establish a regular creative practice. This might mean setting aside dedicated time each day or week to work on our art, whether it's writing, painting, music, or any other form of self-expression. By making creativity a priority and a habit, we signal to ourselves and others that our artistic pursuits are valuable and worthy of our time and energy. We also create a safe space for vulnerability and experimentation, where we can take risks and explore new ideas without pressure or expectation. It's also helpful to seek out opportunities for creative growth and learning, such as workshops, classes, or retreats. By immersing ourselves in a community of like-minded creatives, we expose ourselves to new perspectives, techniques, and ideas that can inspire and challenge us. We also create opportunities for vulnerability and connection, as we share our work and experiences with others who understand the joys and struggles of the creative process. Ultimately, vulnerability and creativity are essential tools for living a full, authentic, and expressive life. By embracing vulnerability as a path to creativity, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities and discovery. We learn to trust in our own unique voice and vision, knowing that our creative contributions have value and meaning. We develop the courage to take risks, the resilience to face challenges, and the openness to connect with others through our art. Remember that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. May we have the courage to show up fully and authentically in our work, knowing that our creative expression has the power to inspire, heal, and transform. And may we find joy and fulfillment in the process of artistic exploration, trusting that every brushstroke, every word, every note is a step towards unleashing our inner artist and sharing our unique gifts with the world. Chapter 21. Vulnerability and Mindfulness. Staying present in the moment. Vulnerability and mindfulness are closely linked. When we practice mindfulness, we cultivate a deeper awareness of our present moment experiences, including our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. This heightened awareness allows us to be more open, authentic, and vulnerable in our interactions with ourselves and others. By staying present and attuned to our inner world, we create space for genuine connection, compassion, and growth. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with curiosity, openness, and non-judgment. It involves observing our experiences as they unfold, without getting caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. When we're mindful, we're better able to navigate the ups and downs of life with greater ease and resilience. We develop the ability to respond to challenges with clarity, wisdom, and compassion, rather than reacting impulsively or unconsciously. Practicing mindfulness can be a powerful tool for cultivating vulnerability because it helps us develop a more honest and accepting relationship with ourselves. When we're mindful, we're more likely to notice our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment or criticism. We learn to observe our experiences with a sense of curiosity and openness, rather than trying to suppress or ignore them. This self-awareness is essential for vulnerability because it allows us to communicate our needs, desires, and boundaries more effectively. One way to practice mindfulness and vulnerability is through meditation. By setting aside time each day to sit in silence and focus on our breath, we create a space for self-reflection and inner exploration. We learn to observe our thoughts and emotions as they arise, without getting attached to them or trying to change them. Over time, this practice can help us develop greater self-awareness, self-compassion, and emotional regulation skills, all of which are essential for vulnerability. Mindfulness can also be practiced in everyday moments, such as when we're eating, walking, or engaging in conversation. By bringing our full attention to these activities, we cultivate a deeper sense of presence and connection. We learn to savor the sensory details of our experiences, such as the taste and texture of our food, the sensation of our feet on the ground, or the tone and rhythm of someone's voice. This heightened awareness can help us feel more grounded, centered, and attuned to the world around us. Another way to cultivate mindfulness and vulnerability is through body awareness practices, such as yoga, tai chi, or qigong. These practices involve moving the body with intention and attention, while also focusing on the breath and sensations that arise. By connecting with our physical experiences in this way, we develop a deeper sense of embodiment and self-awareness. We learn to listen to the wisdom of our bodies and honor our own needs and limits, which is essential for vulnerability. Of course, practicing mindfulness and vulnerability is not always easy, especially in a fast-paced, distraction-filled world. It can be challenging to slow down, tune in, and stay present, particularly when we're feeling stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed. It's important to approach mindfulness with patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to start small. Even a few minutes of mindful breathing or body awareness each day can make a significant difference over time. It's also important to recognize that mindfulness and vulnerability are ongoing practices, not one-time events or achievements. There will be moments when we feel more present and connected, and others when we feel distracted or disconnected. The key is to approach each moment with curiosity and kindness, rather than judgment or frustration. By cultivating a mindful and compassionate attitude towards ourselves and others, we create a foundation for deeper vulnerability and connection. One practical way to integrate mindfulness and vulnerability into daily life is to set intentions for each day or activity. Before starting a task or interaction, take a moment to pause and consider what qualities or attitudes you want to bring to the experience. This might include intentions such as, "I will listen with an open heart," or "I will speak my truth with kindness and clarity." By setting these intentions and returning to them throughout the day, we create a roadmap for more mindful and vulnerable living. It's also helpful to find a community of like-minded individuals who are committed to mindfulness and vulnerability. This might include joining a meditation group, attending a yoga class, or connecting with friends who share similar values and practices. By surrounding ourselves with supportive and inspiring individuals, we create a sense of belonging and accountability that can help us stay committed to our own growth and development. Mindfulness and vulnerability are powerful tools for cultivating a more authentic, compassionate, and fulfilling life. By staying present and attuned to our inner and outer experiences, we create space for deeper connection, wisdom, and growth. We learn to navigate the complexities of life with greater ease and resilience, trusting in our own inner resources and the support of others. As we continue on this path of mindful and vulnerable living, may we remember to approach each moment with curiosity, openness, and compassion. May we have the courage to show up fully and authentically, knowing that our presence and vulnerability are gifts to ourselves and the world. And may we find joy and meaning in the ongoing practice of staying present, connected, and true to ourselves, one breath and one moment at a time. Chapter 22. Vulnerability and Forgiveness. Healing old wounds. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in the process of forgiveness and healing. When we've been hurt, betrayed, or wronged by someone, it can be tempting to shut down emotionally, build walls around our hearts, and hold on to resentment and anger. However, this defensive posture often keeps us stuck in a cycle of pain and disconnection, preventing us from moving forward and finding peace. By practicing vulnerability and opening ourselves up to the possibility of forgiveness, we create space for healing, growth, and liberation. Forgiveness is the act of letting go of anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge towards someone who has harmed us. It's important to note that forgiveness doesn't mean condoning or excusing harmful behavior, nor does it require reconciliation or continued contact with the person who caused us pain. Instead, forgiveness is an internal process of releasing negative emotions and choosing to move forward with compassion and understanding, both for ourselves and others. Vulnerability is essential for forgiveness because it requires us to honestly acknowledge and express the pain and hurt we've experienced. This can be challenging, especially if we've been taught to suppress or minimize our emotions, or if we fear that expressing our vulnerabilities will make us appear weak or needy. However, by courageously sharing our truths and allowing ourselves to be seen and heard, we create the conditions for healing and transformation. One way to practice vulnerability in the forgiveness process is through self-reflection and emotional awareness. This involves taking time to sit with our feelings, without judgment or avoidance, and exploring the roots of our pain and anger. We might ask ourselves questions such as, what unmet needs or expectations contributed to my hurt? What fears or insecurities were triggered by this experience? By developing a deeper understanding of our own emotions and motivations, we can cultivate greater self-compassion and clarity. Another key aspect of vulnerability and forgiveness is communication. When we've been hurt, it's important to express our feelings and needs clearly and directly, without blame or accusation. This might involve writing a letter to the person who harmed us whether or not we choose to send it, or having a conversation with them in a safe and supportive environment. By openly and honestly sharing our experiences and perspectives, we create an opportunity for mutual understanding and empathy. Of course, forgiveness is not always a linear or easy process. There may be times when we feel stuck, resistant, or overwhelmed by the intensity of our emotions. It's important to be patient and compassionate with ourselves during these times, and to seek support from trusted friends, family members, or professionals if needed. We might also find it helpful to engage in practices that promote self-care and emotional regulation, such as meditation, journaling, or exercise. It's also important to recognize that forgiveness doesn't necessarily happen all at once, but rather in stages and layers. We might start by forgiving small hurts or misunderstandings, and gradually work our way up to more significant or traumatic experiences. We might also find that forgiveness is an ongoing practice, requiring us to repeatedly choose compassion and understanding in the face of triggers or challenges. One powerful tool for cultivating forgiveness is perspective taking. This involves trying to understand the other person's experiences, motivations, and limitations, without necessarily agreeing with or excusing their actions. By recognizing the humanity and complexity of the person who harmed us, we can develop greater empathy and release the grip of blame and resentment. We might also consider the ways in which we ourselves have caused harm or made mistakes, and extend the same compassion and understanding to ourselves that we seek to offer others. Ultimately, the practice of vulnerability and forgiveness is a deeply personal and transformative journey. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face our own pain and imperfections. It may involve setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt or resistance. However, by staying committed to the process and trusting in the power of vulnerability and compassion, we can heal old wounds, release the burdens of the past, and create a more peaceful and connected future. As we move through the forgiveness process, it's essential to surround ourselves with supportive and understanding individuals who can offer guidance, validation, and encouragement. We might seek out a therapist, counselor, or support group to help us navigate the complex emotions and challenges that arise. We might also find solace and inspiration in spiritual or philosophical teachings that promote forgiveness, compassion, and inner peace. Vulnerability and forgiveness are not always easy or comfortable, but they are essential for healing, growth, and liberation. By courageously facing our own pain and opening ourselves up to the possibility of compassion and understanding, we create space for transformation and renewal. We learn to release the burdens of the past and to move forward with greater wisdom, resilience, and love. Chapter 23: Vulnerability and Gratitude. Appreciating the gifts in life. Vulnerability and gratitude share a profound connection. When we open ourselves up to the fullness of life's experiences, both the joys and the sorrows, we create space for deep appreciation and thankfulness. Gratitude arises when we acknowledge the goodness and abundance in our lives, even in the face of challenges or difficulties. By practicing vulnerability and gratitude together, we cultivate a more positive, resilient, and interconnected way of being in the world. Gratitude is the practice of noticing and appreciating the gifts, blessing, and positive aspects of our lives. It involves shifting our focus from what's lacking or not going well to what's present and meaningful. When we're grateful, we recognize that life is full of opportunities for growth, connection, and happiness, even in the midst of hardship or uncertainty. Practicing gratitude requires vulnerability because it asks us to let go of our defenses and open ourselves up to the goodness around us. It means acknowledging our interdependence and the ways in which we are supported and uplifted by others. It also means being willing to feel and express positive emotions, such as joy, love, and appreciation, even when we might feel undeserving or afraid of loss. One way to cultivate gratitude and vulnerability is through a daily gratitude practice. This might involve keeping a gratitude journal, where we write down 3 to 5 things we're thankful for each day. These can be simple, everyday blessings, such as a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or a beautiful sunset. By taking time to notice and savor these moments, we train our brains to scan for positivity and abundance, rather than scarcity and lack. Another powerful gratitude practice is expressing appreciation to others. This might involve writing a heartfelt thank you note, giving a compliment, or simply telling someone how much they mean to us. By vulnerably sharing our gratitude and positive regard, we strengthen our relationships and create a ripple effect of kindness and connection. We also challenge ourselves to be more open and authentic in our interactions, rather than holding back our true feelings or thoughts. Gratitude can also be a tool for reframing difficult or painful experiences. When we're going through a tough time, it can be hard to find anything to feel thankful for. However, by intentionally looking for small moments of goodness or beauty, we can shift our perspective and find glimmers of hope and resilience. We might feel grateful for the support of loved ones, the strength of our own spirit, or the lessons and growth opportunities that arise from adversity. Of course, practicing gratitude doesn't mean denying or minimizing the very real challenges and injustices in the world. It's important to acknowledge and address suffering, inequality, and harm, both in our own lives and in society at large. However, gratitude can coexist with a commitment to positive change and social justice. By appreciating the good in our lives, we build the inner resources and motivation to make a difference in the world. One way to deepen our gratitude practice is through mindfulness and present moment awareness. When we're fully engaged in the here and now, we're more likely to notice and appreciate the beauty and wonder around us. We might take a few deep breaths and tune into our senses, savoring the sights, sounds, and sensations of the moment. We might also practice gratitude for our own bodies and minds, thanking them for all the ways they support and sustain us. Cultivating gratitude and vulnerability takes practice and patience. It's natural to have days when we feel discouraged, cynical, or disconnected from the goodness in life. However, by committing to a consistent gratitude practice, we gradually rewire our brains to default to appreciation and positivity. We become more resilient in the face of setbacks, more connected to others, and more fulfilled in our daily lives. It's important to approach gratitude and vulnerability with a spirit of self-compassion and gentleness. We don't need to force ourselves to feel grateful or judge ourselves harshly when we struggle. Instead, we can simply notice and acknowledge our experiences and choose to orient ourselves towards appreciation whenever possible. We can also seek out supportive communities and resources that inspire and uplift us on our gratitude journey. Vulnerability and gratitude are powerful allies in creating a more joyful, connected, and meaningful life. By opening ourselves up to the goodness and abundance around us, we cultivate a sense of wonder, resilience, and purpose. We recognize that even in the face of challenges and uncertainties, there is always something to be thankful for, always a reason to keep going and growing. Chapter 24. Vulnerability and Legacy. Leaving a lasting impact. Vulnerability plays a significant role in shaping the legacy we leave behind. When we live with authenticity, courage, and openness, we create a lasting impact on the world around us. We inspire others to embrace their own vulnerabilities, to live with purpose and meaning, and to make a positive difference in the lives of others. By considering the legacy we want to leave and aligning our actions with our values, we can use vulnerability as a tool for creating a more compassionate, connected, and thriving world. Legacy is the imprint we leave on the world, the way we are remembered, and the impact we have on others, even after we are gone. It encompasses the values we stand for, the relationships we nurture, the work we do, and the way we show up in the world. While legacy is often associated with grand achievements or public recognition, the truth is that every one of us has the power to create a meaningful legacy through our everyday choices and interactions. Vulnerability is essential for leaving a positive legacy because it allows us to connect with others on a deep, authentic level. When we are willing to share our stories, struggles, and hopes, we create a sense of shared humanity and belonging. We give others permission to be vulnerable in return, fostering a culture of empathy, compassion, and mutual support. By modeling vulnerability, we inspire others to live with greater courage, resilience, and purpose. One way to cultivate a vulnerable legacy is by clarifying our values and living in alignment with them. This involves taking time to reflect on what truly matters to us, what kind of person we want to be, and what impact we want to have on the world. It means making choices that honor our authentic selves, even when those choices are difficult or uncomfortable. By consistently acting with integrity and compassion, we build trust and respect with others and leave a positive imprint on the world. Another way to leave a vulnerable legacy is through storytelling and sharing our experiences. When we open up about our own journeys, challenges, and triumphs, we create a sense of connection and relatability with others. We offer hope, encouragement, and wisdom to those who may be struggling with similar issues. By passing on our stories and lessons learned, we contribute to a larger narrative of resilience, growth, and transformation. Leaving a vulnerable legacy also involves investing in meaningful relationships and communities. By showing up fully and authentically in our interactions with others, we create a ripple effect of positivity and connection. We build strong, supportive networks that can sustain us through life's ups and downs, and that can carry on our legacy long after we are gone. By mentoring, teaching, and uplifting others, we pass on our skills, knowledge, and values to future generations. Of course, leaving a vulnerable legacy is not always easy or comfortable. It requires us to face our own fears, insecurities, and limitations, and to take risks in the service of our values and vision. It means being willing to fail, to learn, and to grow, even when the path ahead is uncertain or challenging. However, by staying committed to our authentic selves and to making a positive impact, we can find deep fulfillment and meaning in the process. One practical way to start building a vulnerable legacy is by setting intentions and taking small, consistent actions aligned with our values. This might involve volunteering for a cause we care about, reaching out to a friend in need, or speaking up against injustice or discrimination. It might also involve practicing self-reflection and self-awareness, and making choices that prioritize our own growth and well-being. As we continue on this path of vulnerable legacy building, it's important to be patient and compassionate with ourselves. We may not always get it right, or see the impact of our actions right away. However, by staying true to our values and continuing to show up with authenticity and courage, we can trust that we are making a difference, even in small ways. It's also important to recognize that our legacy is not just about what we accomplish or achieve, but about who we are and how we show up in the world. By cultivating qualities like kindness, empathy, and integrity, we leave a positive imprint on every interaction and relationship we have. We create a legacy of love, connection, and compassion that ripples out far beyond our own lives. Vulnerability is the key to leaving a legacy that truly matters. By embracing our authentic selves, sharing our stories, and investing in meaningful connections, we create a world that is more compassionate, resilient, and interconnected. We inspire others to live with greater purpose and courage, and we leave a positive impact that endures long after we are gone. Chapter 25. Vulnerability in the Digital Age. Navigating Online Connections. Vulnerability takes on new dimensions in the digital age, where so much of our communication and connection happens online. Social media, messaging apps, and video platforms offer unprecedented opportunities for sharing our lives, thoughts, and experiences with others across the globe. However, these digital spaces also come with unique challenges and risks when it comes to vulnerability, privacy, and authenticity. By understanding the dynamics of online vulnerability and developing strategies for healthy digital connections, we can harness the power of technology to foster meaningful relationships and personal growth. One of the key challenges of online vulnerability is the blurring of boundaries between public and private life. When we share personal information, photos, or opinions on social media, we are making ourselves vulnerable to a potentially vast and unknown audience. This can be both exhilarating and daunting, as we open ourselves up to feedback, judgment, and even harassment from others. It's important to be mindful of what we choose to share online, and to set clear boundaries around our personal information and digital interactions. Another challenge of online vulnerability is the lack of nonverbal cues and face-to-face interaction. When we communicate through text, images, or videos, we miss out on the subtle nuances of tone, body language, and emotional presence that are so crucial for building trust and understanding. This can lead to misinterpretations, misunderstandings, and even conflict in our online relationships. To mitigate these risks, it's important to practice clear, honest, and empathetic communication, and to seek out opportunities for more direct, personal connection when possible. At the same time, the digital age also offers unique opportunities for vulnerable connection and self-expression. Online communities, forums, and support groups can provide a safe and supportive space for sharing our struggles, fears, and hopes with others who understand and relate to our experiences. Social media can also be a powerful tool for activism, advocacy, and social change, allowing us to amplify marginalized voices and build solidarity across differences. By using technology intentionally and strategically, we can create digital spaces that foster vulnerability, empathy, and positive impact. To navigate vulnerability in the digital age, it's important to develop a strong sense of digital literacy and self-awareness. This means understanding the risks and benefits of different online platforms and making informed choices about what and how we share. It also means being mindful of our own emotional triggers, boundaries, and needs, and communicating these clearly and assertively with others. By practicing digital self-care and setting healthy limits on our online engagement, we can protect our well-being and cultivate more authentic, nourishing connections. One practical strategy for online vulnerability is to curate our digital presence intentionally and selectively. This might involve choosing to share only certain aspects of our lives or personality online, or using privacy settings to control who can see and interact with our content. It might also mean being selective about the online communities and relationships we engage with, and seeking out spaces that align with our values and support our growth. By being proactive and purposeful in our online presence, we can create a digital footprint that reflects our authentic selves and fosters meaningful connections. Another strategy is to balance online vulnerability with offline connection and self-care. While digital spaces can be a valuable source of support and inspiration, they are not a substitute for the depth and richness of in-person relationships and experiences. By prioritizing offline activities and interactions that nourish our mind, body, and spirit, we can maintain a healthy perspective on our digital lives and avoid becoming overly dependent on online validation or approval. It's also important to approach online vulnerability with a growth mindset and a willingness to learn and adapt. The digital landscape is constantly evolving, and what works for us today may not work tomorrow. By staying curious, open, and adaptable, we can navigate the challenges and opportunities of online vulnerability with greater resilience and flexibility. We can learn from our mistakes, seek out new perspectives and resources, and continually refine our approach to digital connection and self-expression. Vulnerability in the digital age is about finding a balance between openness and discernment, connection and self-care, authenticity and adaptability. By approaching online interactions with intention, compassion, and wisdom, we can harness the power of technology to enrich our lives and relationships, while also protecting our well-being and personal growth. We can create digital spaces that foster empathy, creativity, and positive change, and that reflect the best of our shared humanity. As we navigate this ever-changing digital landscape, let us remember that vulnerability is a courageous and transformative act, no matter the medium. Let us use technology as a tool for connection, growth, and positive impact, while also honoring our own boundaries, values, and needs. And let us approach online vulnerability with curiosity, compassion, and a commitment to creating a more authentic, empathetic, and interconnected world, one post, comment, or share at a time. Chapter 26. Vulnerability and Cultural Diversity. Bridging differences. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in bridging cultural differences and fostering understanding across diverse communities. When we open ourselves up to learning about and connecting with people from different backgrounds, we expand our worldview, challenge our assumptions, and build empathy and respect for experiences beyond our own. By practicing vulnerability in the context of cultural diversity, we can create a more inclusive, equitable, and compassionate society. Cultural diversity encompasses the wide range of identities, experiences, and ways of being that make up the human tapestry. It includes differences in race, ethnicity, nationality, language, religion, gender, sexual orientation, ability, age, socioeconomic status, and more. Each of these aspects of identity shapes our perceptions, values, and interactions with the world around us. When we fail to acknowledge and appreciate cultural diversity, we risk perpetuating stereotypes, discrimination, and division. Vulnerability is essential for bridging cultural differences because it requires us to step outside of our comfort zones and engage with perspectives and experiences that may be unfamiliar or challenging to us. It means being willing to admit what we don't know, to ask questions with genuine curiosity and respect, and to listen deeply to stories and viewpoints that may differ from our own. By approaching cultural diversity with vulnerability, we create space for authentic connection, mutual understanding, and collective growth. One way to practice vulnerability in the context of cultural diversity is to educate ourselves about the histories, struggles, and contributions of different communities. This might involve reading books, watching films, or attending events that highlight diverse voices and perspectives. It might also mean seeking out opportunities for direct engagement and dialogue with people from different cultural backgrounds, such as through community organizations, cultural festivals, or interfaith gatherings. By taking an active interest in learning about others, we demonstrate respect and openness to their experiences. Another way to cultivate vulnerability in the face of cultural differences is to examine our own biases, privileges, and blind spots. We all carry implicit assumptions and prejudices based on our cultural conditioning and personal experiences. These biases can shape our interactions with others in ways that are often unintentional but still harmful. By practicing self-reflection and self-awareness, we can begin to identify and challenge our own biases and work towards more equitable and inclusive ways of relating to others. Vulnerability in the context of cultural diversity also means being willing to have difficult conversations about power, privilege, and oppression. It means acknowledging the ways in which certain groups have been systematically marginalized or disadvantaged, and taking responsibility for our own role in perpetuating or challenging these systems. This can be uncomfortable and emotionally charged work, but it is essential for building a more just and compassionate society. By engaging in these conversations with vulnerability and humility, we can begin to dismantle the barriers that divide us and work towards greater understanding and solidarity. Of course, practicing vulnerability in the face of cultural differences is not always easy or comfortable. It requires us to confront our own fears, insecurities, and defensiveness, and to take risks in the service of growth and connection. It also requires us to be patient, persistent, and compassionate with ourselves and others, recognizing that bridging differences is a lifelong learning process. However, the rewards of this work are immeasurable as we expand our capacity for empathy, creativity, and collaboration across diverse communities. One practical way to start building vulnerability and cultural competence is to seek out opportunities for meaningful cross-cultural engagement in our daily lives. This might involve joining a diverse community group or organization, attending cultural events or workshops, or simply striking up conversations with people from different backgrounds in our neighborhoods or workplaces. By making a conscious effort to connect with others across differences, we create opportunities for mutual learning, growth, and understanding. It's also important to approach cultural diversity with a spirit of humility, respect, and open-mindedness. We may make mistakes or encounter misunderstandings along the way, but by staying committed to the process of learning and growth, we can build more authentic and meaningful relationships across differences. We can also use our own experiences of vulnerability to cultivate greater empathy and compassion for others who may be facing similar challenges or struggles. Practicing vulnerability in the context of cultural diversity is not about erasing or ignoring differences, but rather about learning to appreciate and celebrate them. It's about recognizing that our unique identities and experiences are a source of strength and resilience, and that by coming together across differences, we can create a more vibrant, innovative, and compassionate world. It's about building bridges of understanding and solidarity, even in the face of fear, ignorance, or hostility. Chapter 27. Vulnerability and Spirituality. Connecting with something greater. Vulnerability is a powerful catalyst for spiritual growth and connection. When we open ourselves up to the big questions of life, questions of meaning, purpose, and the nature of reality, we tap into a deeper sense of ourselves and our place in the universe. By practicing vulnerability in the context of spirituality, we can cultivate a more grounded, compassionate, and expansive way of being in the world. Spirituality means different things to different people, but at its core, it is about connecting with something greater than ourselves. This might be a belief in God, a higher power, or a universal energy that animates all of life. It might be a sense of oneness with nature, a feeling of interconnectedness with all beings, or a recognition of the inherent sacredness of existence. Whatever form it takes, spirituality invites us to look beyond our individual selves and connect with a larger sense of meaning and purpose. Vulnerability is essential for spiritual growth because it requires us to let go of our defenses, assumptions, and certainties. It means being willing to ask the big questions, even when we don't have all the answers. It means opening ourselves up to mystery, uncertainty, and the unknown, trusting that there is wisdom and guidance available to us if we are willing to listen. By practicing vulnerability in our spiritual lives, we create space for deeper insight, healing, and transformation. One way to cultivate vulnerability in the context of spirituality is through contemplative practices such as meditation, prayer, or mindfulness. These practices invite us to quiet the noise of our busy minds and tune into the still, small voice within. They help us develop a sense of presence, awareness, and inner calm, even in the midst of life's challenges and uncertainties. By making time for regular contemplative practice, we create a foundation of vulnerability and openness that can support us in all areas of our lives. Another way to practice vulnerability in our spiritual lives is through acts of service and compassion. When we reach out to others with kindness and care, we tap into a deeper sense of our shared humanity and the interconnectedness of all beings. We recognize that we are all vulnerable, all in need of love and support, and that by giving to others, we also receive. By practicing generosity, empathy, and compassion, we open ourselves up to the transformative power of love and connection. Vulnerability in the context of spirituality also means being willing to confront our own shadows, wounds, and limitations. It means acknowledging the parts of ourselves that we may prefer to hide or deny, and bringing them into the light of awareness and acceptance. This can be difficult and painful work, but it is essential for spiritual growth and healing. By facing our own darkness with courage and compassion, we create space for greater wholeness, resilience, and authenticity in our lives. Of course, practicing vulnerability in our spiritual lives is not always easy or comfortable. It can be tempting to cling to certainty, dogma, or external validation, rather than trusting in the wisdom of our own hearts and experiences. It can also be challenging to navigate the many different spiritual paths and traditions available to us, each with their own beliefs, practices, and communities. However, by staying true to our own inner guidance and being open to learning from others, we can find a spiritual path that resonates with our deepest values and aspirations. One practical way to start cultivating vulnerability and spirituality is to set aside regular time for reflection, contemplation, and inner exploration. This might involve journaling, reading inspirational texts, or engaging in creative activities that help us access our intuition and imagination. It might also mean seeking out spiritual teachers, mentors, or communities that can offer guidance, support, and encouragement on our path. It's important to approach spirituality with a sense of openness, curiosity, and humility. We may have moments of profound insight or revelation, but we may also encounter doubt, confusion, or disillusionment along the way. By staying committed to the process of growth and learning, and being willing to ask for help when we need it, we can navigate the ups and downs of the spiritual path with greater resilience and grace. Vulnerability and spirituality are inextricably linked, as they both require us to let go of our ego, our defenses, and our illusions of control. They invite us to connect with something greater than ourselves, whether that is a higher power, a sense of purpose, or the intrinsic worth and dignity of all beings. They challenge us to live with greater authenticity, compassion, and courage, even in the face of life's uncertainties and challenges. Chapter 28: Vulnerability and Personal Growth. Embracing change and transformation. Vulnerability is a key driver of personal growth and transformation. When we open ourselves up to new experiences, perspectives, and ways of being, we create space for profound shifts in our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. By practicing vulnerability in the context of personal growth, we can develop greater self-awareness, resilience, and adaptability in the face of life's challenges and opportunities. Personal growth is an ongoing process of learning, evolving, and becoming more fully ourselves. It involves identifying and challenging the limiting beliefs, patterns, and behaviors that hold us back, while also cultivating the strengths, values, and aspirations that allow us to thrive. Personal growth requires us to step outside of our comfort zones, take risks, and embrace the discomfort of change and uncertainty. Vulnerability is essential for personal growth because it allows us to acknowledge and confront our own fears, insecurities, and blind spots. It means being willing to look honestly at ourselves, even when what we see is difficult or painful. It means admitting when we don't have all the answers, when we need help or support, or when we have made mistakes or caused harm. By practicing vulnerability in the context of personal growth, we create a foundation of self-awareness and humility that can guide us towards meaningful change. One way to cultivate vulnerability in the service of personal growth is through regular self-reflection and introspection. This might involve journaling, meditation, or therapy practices that help us tune into our inner world and gain insight into our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. By taking time to reflect on our experiences, we can identify patterns and themes that may be holding us back, as well as strengths and opportunities for growth. Another way to practice vulnerability in the context of personal growth is through seeking out new experiences and perspectives. This might involve traveling to new places, trying new activities or hobbies, or engaging with people from different backgrounds and walks of life. By exposing ourselves to new ideas and ways of being, we expand our sense of what is possible and challenge our assumptions and biases. We also develop greater empathy, adaptability, and resilience in the face of change and uncertainty. Vulnerability in the context of personal growth also means being willing to take risks and face our fears. This might involve speaking up about something we believe in, even when it feels scary or uncomfortable. It might mean leaving a job or relationship that is no longer serving us, even when the future is uncertain. It might mean pursuing a dream or passion, even when we don't know if we will succeed. By taking courageous action in the face of fear, we build confidence, resilience, and trust in ourselves and the journey of growth. Of course, practicing vulnerability in the context of personal growth is not always easy or comfortable. It can be tempting to stay in our comfort zones, avoid difficult conversations or decisions, or numb ourselves to the discomfort of change. It can also be challenging to navigate the many different paths and approaches to personal growth, each with their own promises and pitfalls. However, by staying committed to the process of learning and evolution, and being willing to ask for help and support when we need it, we can weather the ups and downs of the growth journey with greater ease and grace. One practical way to start embracing vulnerability and personal growth is to set intentions and goals for ourselves, and to break them down into small, manageable steps. This might involve identifying areas of our lives where we feel stuck or unfulfilled, and brainstorming ways to make positive changes. It might also mean seeking out resources, mentors, or communities that can support us in our growth, and being willing to ask for help and feedback along the way. It's important to approach personal growth with a spirit of self-compassion, patience, and curiosity. We may encounter setbacks, roadblocks, or moments of doubt and frustration along the way. But by treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, we can maintain a sense of perspective and motivation. We can also celebrate our successes and milestones, no matter how small, and use them as fuel for continued growth and learning. Vulnerability and personal growth are intimately connected, as they both require us to let go of our defenses, embrace uncertainty, and trust in the process of change and evolution. They invite us to become more fully ourselves, to live with greater authenticity, purpose, and joy, even in the face of life's challenges and complexities. They challenge us to be lifelong learners, to stay open to new ideas and experiences, and to continually push the boundaries of what we believe is possible. As we move forward on this path of vulnerable personal growth, let us approach it with courage, curiosity, and a willingness to be transformed. Let us trust in our own innate wisdom and resilience, while also staying open to the guidance and support of others. And let us find joy and meaning in the ongoing process of learning, evolving, and becoming more fully ourselves, one brave step at a time. Chapter 29. Vulnerability and Success. Redefining what matters most. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in redefining success and discovering what truly matters in life. When we open ourselves up to a deeper exploration of our values, priorities, and aspirations, we often find that success is about much more than external achievements or material gains. By practicing vulnerability in the context of success, we can cultivate a more authentic, fulfilling, and purposeful way of living and working. Success is often narrowly defined in terms of wealth, status, or power, external markers of achievement that may bring temporary satisfaction, but do not necessarily lead to lasting happiness or meaning. This limited view of success can drive us to pursue goals that are not aligned with our deepest values and desires, leading to stress, burnout, and a sense of emptiness or disconnection. By redefining success through the lens of vulnerability, we can connect with what truly matters to us and create a life that is rich in purpose, connection, and joy. Vulnerability is essential for redefining success because it requires us to look beyond the surface-level trappings of achievement and examine what really drives and fulfills us. It means being willing to ask the big questions about what we want to contribute to the world, what kind of person we want to be, and what legacy we want to leave behind. It means being honest about our own strengths, weaknesses, and limitations, and aligning our goals and actions with our authentic selves. One way to cultivate vulnerability in the context of success is through clarifying our values and priorities. This might involve taking time to reflect on what is most important to us in life: our relationships, our health, our creativity, our sense of purpose, and how we want to prioritize these things in our daily choices and actions. It might also mean identifying and challenging the external pressures or expectations that may be driving us to pursue goals that are not truly our own. Another way to practice vulnerability in the pursuit of success is through seeking out feedback and support from others. This might involve asking for honest input from trusted friends, mentors, or colleagues about our strengths, weaknesses, and areas for growth. It might also mean being willing to share our own struggles, challenges, and aspirations with others, and creating a network of support and accountability that can help us stay true to our values and goals. Vulnerability in the context of success also means being willing to take risks and face uncertainty. This might involve stepping outside of our comfort zones to pursue a new career path, start a business, or take on a leadership role. It might mean being willing to fail, learn, and adapt along the way, trusting that the journey of growth and discovery is just as important as the destination. By embracing vulnerability and risk-taking in the pursuit of success, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and opportunities for fulfillment and impact. Of course, redefining success through the lens of vulnerability is not always easy or straightforward. It can be challenging to let go of external validation, money, or status as markers of worth and achievement. It can also be difficult to navigate the many competing demands and expectations that we face in our personal and professional lives, and to make choices that align with our true values and priorities. However, by staying committed to the process of self-discovery and growth, and being willing to make bold, authentic choices, we can create a life that is truly successful on our own terms. One practical way to start redefining success through vulnerability is to take inventory of our current goals, habits, and relationships, and assess how well they align with our deepest values and aspirations. This might involve setting aside time for regular self-reflection, journaling, or meditation, and being willing to make changes or let go of things that are no longer serving us. It might also mean seeking out new experiences, relationships, or learning opportunities that can help us grow and expand our perspective on what is possible. It's important to approach the redefinition of success with a spirit of self-compassion, flexibility, and patience. We may encounter setbacks, challenges, or moments of doubt along the way, but by staying true to our own unique path and values, we can find a sense of purpose and fulfillment that is deeper and more enduring than any external achievement. Vulnerability and success are not mutually exclusive, but rather two sides of the same coin. By opening ourselves up to a more authentic, wholehearted way of living and working, we create the conditions for true success, a life that is rich in meaning, connection, and impact. By redefining success on our own terms and being willing to take bold, vulnerable steps towards our deepest aspirations, we become the architects of our own fulfillment and joy. Let us trust in the wisdom of our own hearts and experiences, while also staying open to the guidance and support of others. And let us find inspiration in the knowledge that true success is not about reaching a destination, but about the ongoing journey of becoming more fully ourselves and making a positive difference in the world along the way. Chapter 30. The lifelong journey of vulnerability, continuing to grow and evolve. Vulnerability is not a one-time event or achievement, but rather an ongoing practice and way of being in the world. It is a lifelong journey of growth, learning, and evolution, one that requires constant commitment, courage, and self-reflection. As we move through the different stages and experiences of life, vulnerability invites us to continue showing up authentically, taking risks, and opening ourselves up to the full range of human experience. The journey of vulnerability is not always easy or comfortable. It asks us to confront our deepest fears, insecurities, and limitations, and to face the uncertainty and discomfort of change and growth. It requires us to let go of old patterns, defenses, and identities that may have served us in the past, but no longer align with our highest truth and potential. It challenges us to stay open and curious in the face of setbacks, failures, and heartbreaks, trusting that these experiences are all part of the larger story of our unfolding. However, the rewards of a life lived vulnerably are immeasurable. By continuing to practice vulnerability, we develop greater self-awareness, resilience, and adaptability in the face of life's challenges and opportunities. We cultivate deeper, more authentic relationships with others, based on mutual trust, empathy, and understanding. We tap into our creativity, innovation, and problem-solving abilities as we learn to embrace uncertainty and take bold, courageous steps towards our goals and dreams. One of the keys to sustaining vulnerability over a lifetime is developing a strong foundation of self-care and self-compassion. This means treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, even when we make mistakes or fall short of our own expectations. It means prioritizing our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and creating rituals and practices that nourish and sustain us. It means surrounding ourselves with supportive, encouraging people who see and appreciate our vulnerability, and who challenge us to keep growing and evolving. Another important aspect of the lifelong journey of vulnerability is staying open to new experiences, perspectives, and ways of being. This might involve traveling to new places, trying new activities or hobbies, or engaging with people from different backgrounds and walks of life. It might mean questioning our assumptions and beliefs, and being willing to change our minds or admit when we are wrong. It might mean taking on new roles, responsibilities, or challenges that push us outside of our comfort zones and help us discover new strengths and capacities. Vulnerability also invites us to embrace the cyclical nature of growth and transformation. Just as the seasons change and the tides ebb and flow, our own journey of vulnerability is marked by periods of expansion and contraction, light and shadow, joy and sorrow. By learning to ride the waves of change with grace and resilience, we develop a deeper trust in the inherent wisdom and intelligence of life. We learn to see challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning, and to find meaning and purpose in even the most difficult circumstances. Of course, the journey of vulnerability is not a solitary one. It is a path that we walk in community with others, sharing our stories, struggles, and triumphs along the way. By being vulnerable with others, we create a sense of connection and belonging that transcends our individual differences and experiences. We inspire and uplift each other, and create a ripple effect of positive change in the world around us. As we continue on this lifelong journey of vulnerability, it is important to approach it with a spirit of humility, curiosity, and wonder. We may never reach a final destination or achieve a state of perfection, but we can find joy and fulfillment in the ongoing process of growth and discovery. We can celebrate our own unique path and contributions, while also staying open to the wisdom and guidance of others. One practical way to stay committed to the journey of vulnerability is to set intentions and goals for ourselves, and to regularly reflect on our progress and learning. This might involve keeping a journal or sharing our experiences with a trusted friend or mentor. It might also mean seeking out new resources, tools, or practices that can support us in our growth and help us navigate the challenges and opportunities we face. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks the door to a life of authenticity, connection, and purpose. It is the foundation of true strength, resilience, and success, as we define it for ourselves. By continuing to practice vulnerability over a lifetime, we become more fully ourselves, more deeply connected to others, and more empowered to make a positive difference in the world. As we move forward on this lifelong journey of vulnerability, let us do so with courage, compassion, and a deep trust in the inherent goodness and potential of ourselves and others. Let us stay open to the mystery and magic of life, and find joy in the ongoing process of growth and transformation. And let us support and inspire each other along the way, knowing that we are all in this together, learning, evolving, and becoming more fully human with each vulnerable step we take. The journey of vulnerability is the journey of a lifetime, but it is one that is worth taking again and again. For it is through vulnerability that we find the courage to live, love, and create with abandon, and to leave a legacy of authenticity, compassion, and positive change in the world. May we all have the courage to keep showing up vulnerably, day after day, and to trust in the transformative power of openness, honesty, and connection.